Well, I'll go live and then nobody says anything.
Right. Except for typing.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, I think the notes are about done. I'm gonna head back, and I'll meet you guys right here.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. I'll eventually get this mic in the right position.
I thought you were having an earthquake over there in Texas.
It's possible.
Got a ring? Guess we're going to talk about that in
Yep. I got a Ring video doorbell and a Ring floodlight camera.
I'll see if I can get the YouTube chat pulled up.
Oh yeah, we're streaming.
Okay, can you hear me?
No.
You sure can.
Oh my gosh, man. Cinnamon's been giving me so much trouble here lately.
Oh dear. You should use a decent desktop environment.
Oh, get out of here with that, Tony.
I don't know. I'm not having any trouble with Cinnamon. You should just
Well,
uninstall it and reinstall it.
It all started when I started using this dock. So I know a lot of it stems from using the dock, and the screen is basically a second screen, and it's doing mirroring, and so
Okay.
I know
okay.
that's where it's coming from, but it's just annoying.
Are you using DisplayLink or something?
DVI actually, which is why I'm so surprised that it's weird.
Not DisplayPort, DisplayLink.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
Are you okay? So you have a dock. Are you using the video output from the dock?
Correct.
Then you're probably using DisplayLink, which isn't optimized for Linux.
Well. Yeah, so, yeah. I've gotten...
Switch
I
to
came
XFCE
in...
for a while.
What's that?
Switch to XFCE for a while.
Ugh. I might try GNOME. My
Yeah,
arch
really.
nemesis, man.
Well, you want a little bit less overhead, and GNOME's not going to give that to you.
Well, then there's always Plasma, right?
Yeah, KDE Plasma could do it.
I don't know. I've been... I'm tired of fighting today. I'm just gonna hope nothing crashes, man. Because what was it? Yesterday and the day before, I was fighting with Jack. Today, I'm fighting with Cinnamon. What? See, I don't even know that it's Cinnamon, because it doesn't seem like a desktop environment issue. Like, the screen goes crazy. I don't even know how to explain it. I'll take a video of it next time. But it's not graphical artifacts. It's quite literally the output to the monitor is not even close to correct. It's like the resolution's all off. It's flickering. It's doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So I don't think it's the monitor, because when I reboot, everything is fine. So just weird.
You should see
weird.
if you have DisplayLink installed. Maybe it's running something else, and then check and make sure that the version of DisplayLink is, up to date.
Is that's a package on Linux?
Yeah, you have to. Before, I don't know if it's changed or not. You always had to install DisplayLink.
Oh no, I mean
To get it
everything works, but it will just freak out on me one day out of the week, and today was that day.
Okay.
So I don't know. Can you guys hear that on the live stream? Oh, that was the wrong-
I've just switched the live stream off. So.
I just played that. I played the wrong song. We're transitioning.
Well, we got a couple of seconds to find out if it's on there or not.
Awesome.
It's really freaky going back and listening to yourself about 5 seconds after you've said something.
Oh yeah. Hey, I'll put the live stream in. Post it to Discord. Seems like Discord was the common thread that would crash Cinnamon. So I'm gonna not open it and see what happens.
So how are you going to put it in Discord then?
You will.
You want me to?
Anybody, I don't care. Just throw the link over there, please.
Yeah, I'll do it. Where do you normally post it? In the public?
Yeah, just pub general.
Yeah, the music is there.
Yay!
Yeah, I heard the music.
Yeah, Dan mentioned it as
Public
well.
general.
Yay! Oh, is that Bo? Undercast Collective. I see that.
It is, yeah. It's the new.
Hey, wait a minute.
channel.
I've been meaning to do that, by the way. Don't, Bo. After
Yay!
this, don't let me forget to feature you guys under mintCast on YouTube.
Oh, cool. Yeah, yeah. I don't know what that means, but I'll take it.
Aw, sweet. No, I subbed to Tony's channel earlier. I need to feature him as well.
You
Oh,
putting tech stuff on there?
No, just us. Like,
No, Undercast.
Yeah,
Oh.
well, it's not just me. So far, it's just been me posting, but I've got a few other people that are supposed to help, other creatives in my small town. And we're just gonna post like all of mine will mostly be tech and podcast related, but there's a friend of mine that makes movies. He's going to post like little mini tutorials on certain aspects of making, small budget films and things like that. So it's kind of just it's the Undercast Collective. It's just a small town full of creative people, and we're trying to help promote each other's stuff on this YouTube channel. But right now, I'm doing a series of. I tore down my old podcast and I'm building a new one in the new house. So I've got like 3 videos that I've got footage for 3 videos, but I've not put them together yet with any kind of. I've got to do like a narration or some recording on top of it, and I haven't done that part yet. So I should have videos in pretty soon about the new studio and everything.
nice. That's cool. Yeah, that's going to be really cool to check out. So yeah.
I fixed the typo on Distro Hoppers, by the way, Leo. Thanks
Hey,
for the
you're welcome. I had to do a retweet on that one because it was mint stuff.
Yeah, it was just a typo. The actual link was the correct one.
Oh, I imagine so. Oh yeah, speaking of typos, it wasn't a typo, but our OG was totally broken for like 5 days, and nobody told us about it except for the one guy on YouTube. Fuzzy mentioned it, but he said it was just Spotify because that's where he gets his podcasts. And I'm like, all right, cool. Well, I'll go punch Spotify. So I did. Nothing happened. And then someone on YouTube left a comment under our live stream saying the OG wasn't available. When you click download on it, it doesn't do anything. And so I went to go look, and I'm like, sure enough, even archive.org had a broken OG file. So the original OG file worked just fine. I don't know what happened to it in transit. I tagged it. I played it a couple times like I normally do before I post it to make sure that everything is good, and then I posted it, and somehow it broke. So I don't know what was up with that. You know what it was?
You broke it.
It was the curse of
you.
Fedora. I was on Fedora when I did that.
Right, I've just started
man.
the recording, by the way, on
Thank you.
Mumble.
So that was it. I think it was just I was on the wrong distribution. Mint did not like I was posting a Mint.
Yeah, from Fedora.
Yeah.
I can tell.
I had considered adding something about the WeChat and TikTok stuff into news, but I think we have enough.
Yeah, I'm gonna ramble on about GNOME. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. I actually have the intro ready to go. Something's really wrong. I've got
All right, I guess-
wanderings ready. I've got news ready. I've got innards. No, I don't have innards ready.
It's
Okay, I'm
only-
just gonna wing innards.
I
It's
guess
only,
we need to
it's only 8:05. What's wrong?
I know, right?
start starting almost on time. Crazy.
That's not a thing we do. All right. Well, Tony, you ready for all the shenanigans?
Yeah, should we go for it?
Do it.
Let's do it.
So,
All right.
everyone's got Audacity ready?
Yeah.
You're all
It
ready
might
to press-
crash, but yeah.
Ready? Yeah.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, record. Okay. Did anyone hear the ambulance?
I was going to say, I heard a siren on somebody's.
Yeah, it was me.
And it wasn't
Yep,
even Moss.
barely.
What's up with that when the
Okay.
car noises aren't coming from Moss? Coming from inside the house.
He has the big trucks though that go by his house.
Yeah. I've got a fairly main road next to the house, but it's not a big trunk road. Right, should we do 3, 2, 1, 0?
Let's
Sure.
do it.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Zero.
0.
Sounded pretty good.
Think so. Bo was the odd man out there, I think.
I can never tell where I'm supposed to say 0. I did say it, but I'm not good at the timing.
You're trying to make Owen's job really hard, aren't you?
It'll line up. It'll line up.
Timing, rhythm. If only,
Aren't
if only
you a
you had some way
musician?
to practice that stuff.
Oh,
Right?
Oh.
I haven't played much since COVID started, other than acoustic. I haven't got to play any live things.
Yeah, that's the way it is. There's just not a lot to be had unless you do the acoustic thing or play in some of the really, really large places that can do bands safely, which aren't very many.
We'll
Yeah.
take a collection and get you a metronome.
Oh, I can play to a metronome to save my life. I can go ahead and tell you that. I've had to do it when we're recording several times. I don't know if I'm following it correctly or not. I'm more likely to follow someone in the room tapping their foot more than I am to follow the metronome.
It's weird. I can do it, but it's not. It still doesn't come naturally to me. and
It's
I've
not
done it a lot.
natural. Yeah.
So it can't be a metronome. It's got to be a human gnome.
Yeah, I can follow a human gnome, an actual gnome. I can do.
So I think what he's saying is if we had a drummer give us a 4 count and to hit and record, he'd be right on it.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Tony, I guess that means Tony Hughes. I guess that means you got to buy some hi hats or something.
Just click some sticks together, man.
There you go. There you go.
Now you got to get your podcaster rig, the streamer fixed so that it actually pipes audio into Mumble, and then just get a recording.
Yeah,
There it is.
Mm.
That solves a
Well-
couple problems.
we're getting real close to that because we've been fiddling with Jack, but I think Bo probably got way more progress than I did. But I did get it to work finally.
I think we'll save it for the segment, but I would say
Yeah.
that I got luckier than you. I don't know that I got any further than you.
Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see how it all pans out.
Oh, there's a
So-
good quote for the Easter egg there. I got luckier than you.
Ah,
But
that's
out
right.
of context, and then no one knows what it's about.
There's Owen. 0. That's good. All right. So if we're ready,
Yep.
all right.
Do your worst.
Oh, I will. Welcome to mintCast, the podcast by the Linux Mint community for all users of Linux. This is episode 344. This is episode 344.5. Livestream information is at mintcast.org/livestream. We're in the mintcast channel in IRC at irc.spotchat.org. If you see something that you'd like to hear about, tell us. Send us email at mintcast@mintcast.org. Join us live on YouTube. Post at the mintcast subreddit. Chat with us on Telegram, Discord, or comment Facebook, something. Or post directly at mintcast.org. I'll get that right next time, surely. This is Leo, and with me today is Joe,
Hello.
Tony Hughes,
Hi, guys.
Bo,
I feel like I haven't been here in forever, but I'm here.
forever, and Tony Watts.
Hello.
We're recording on Sunday, September 20, 2020. First up, in our wanderings, I fiddle with the Focusrite. Tony Hughes paints it pink. Joe puts a ring on it. Bo gets jacked. Tony Watts reduces, reuses, and recycles. Then, in the news, WSL2 hearts Linux disks. NVIDIA grows an arm. And GNOME GNUs. In security, we finished the conversation we've been having over the past couple of weeks. In our intersection, we finish another conversation, and then we kind of make it into going over working from home / home office setups we have. And finally, of course, the feedback and a couple of suggestions. So in my wanderings, Bo and I were talking over the past couple of weeks trying to figure out this whole jack thing. I know, Bo, you've used it before, so you have at least a little bit of background in there.
Yeah, I
And
followed Rob's instructions when we first started the podcast, started doing mintCast. He gave us some instructions on how to set up Livecast stream. And so other than following his instructions word for word, I'd never done it before.
ooh, so yeah, I don't even think I went with that. I'm a very, oh, you want me to use this? Okay, give me a minute. I'm gonna go over here and then just smack it until it breaks. That's
Yeah.
usually how I learn just about everything. No, I
Yeah.
did. I did do that. And so the conversation that we were having was basically, I need to reinstall Linux Mint on my desktop because I got a bigger disk anyway. So what I was going to do with my old Linux Mint install is try the Ubuntu Studio installer on it and just see what happens. Well, I did do that, and everything installed correctly. I did the low latency kernel. I did the Ubuntu Studio tweaks. I installed Carla, and there was something else. I think it was just all the rest of the Jack tools for Ubuntu distributions. Well, in the instructions, the whole reason I wanted to use a disposable version of Linux for this was because in the instructions it says don't use derivatives. Use Ubuntu or an Ubuntu spin. So
Right.
yeah, we're kind of entering the danger zone at this point.
Yeah, we weren't really sure if this was actually going to work on Linux Mint because it's not a quote unquote spin. But you were kind of under the impression that could just be they haven't tested it in such a way. So it's kind of like use at your own risk kind of deal.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it turned out to be. Because everything installed fine, everything rebooted. I got to select the low latency kernel, everything was fine. So it turned out that it did work, except I just didn't know how to use it. So I open up QJack CTL or whatever it is, QJack something or another, where you turn it on. I press start, and it says no. I think I have the error message floating around here somewhere, but it was very nice about it too. It was like, Jack cannot start. Sorry. I was like, all right, cool, man. Thanks, appreciate that, but help me out.
Yeah,
So,
I saw that same error plenty of times.
Yeah. So I was like, well, okay. I hadn't put anything on that new disk yet, so I was like, well, let me just put Ubuntu on it and then do the Ubuntu Studio installer there. So I did do that, started it up, turned on Jack, same thing. Same issue. And I'm like, well, this is not a Linux Mint thing, so weird. So the next thing I tried was just got a live installation of Ubuntu Studio, booted that up in the live mode, and turned it on. And same thing. So I'm like, what is
Wow.
going on? And so I'm at the end of my rope at this point, right? And I go into Ubuntu Studio, the QJack thing, go into settings, and I see in there it says interface default. I'm like, yeah, cool. The one that I have selected. Surely that's what it's using. I don't know what it was using. So I go in and I select specifically my hardware interface, my USB interface. Start it up. Bingo. It works. What?
Oh, wow. Okay,
Yeah.
so we've been messaging each other all week trying to decide why I had a better experience with it than you did. And that is something that I did right away. Was I changed that from default to my USB interface. And I did it because I was following a YouTube video. Oh my gosh. I didn't know we were going to talk about this, so I don't have it written down, but I'll find it and maybe we can put it in the show notes. But I followed I just looked up like Jack audio setup, and it was like the number one video that came up, and so I followed it, and that was one of the first steps he said to do was to change that and to change the bit rate. And so those were I didn't even know why I was changing those settings. I just did it because he told me to, and it seemed to work for me. So that must be the difference.
Yeah, that was the only thing that was stopping me from using Jack. It turned out that I had wasted hours trying to figure it out. And this is just a vestige of me not reading the manual first. Because I really do. I love to just dive in and just figure it out. I mean, I did figure it out, but not without a few paper cuts here and there. But honestly, it's a learning experience. I will never, ever forget to do that again. Never. That was way too frustrating. But Anyway, long story short, long story shorter. It's about as complicated as I expected.
Yeah.
I've seen Carla before, and on Linux User Space, Dan Simmons has shown us his Carla setup, which I swear, when he shows it to you, it looks easy. He's like, oh yeah, this connects to this, and this connects to this right here, and then you just put this over here, and then boom, boom, bam. I've got a compressor right here. It just does all this audio stuff for me, and this does, extra gain, so you get extra volume on it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm over here just like nodding my head, like, yeah, I totally get this. This is oh yeah, yeah. Just give me Carla, I'll do this right away. Less than 3 minutes, I got it. And so I get it all started. I open up Carla, and I'm like, what is this? Any of this? I understand what it is, but how do you put more stuff on it? So I turned on Audacity, and like something came up, but it didn't say Audacity, and there was like stuff connected to it. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? What is that even? So,
Yeah, this is the part that I was confused about also, because this is different for me this time than it was when I was doing this under Rob's instructions. And I don't know what step I may have done back then that I didn't do this time, but my Carla, it's just like you described, it's blank. I don't see anything I can plug into anywhere other than the default input and output and then your system audio. And that's the only things already connected. They didn't require me to do anything. But I remember when Rob walked us through this, there was like an Audacity, and you could plug the input, you could plug your mic into the input of Audacity, and there may have even been one for OBS if you had it open. There was like a bunch of different, it's almost like there's like a package of plugins or something that we need to install that or something, because I had nothing. I couldn't get anything to come up.
Well, I could get plugins there. Like I was able to manage, I managed to get a compressor on there. But I mean, I was so afraid to like unplug something, I would forget where it was. I should have just taken a screenshot and then, plugged it into the compressor and pass it through and then to the output or whatever. And that's how you do that.
Wow.
At least that's kind of what I gathered. So you can do some really cool stuff to process your audio before it ever hits something like Audacity or Ardour. But the thing was, I couldn't. There's just so much. It's just absolutely so much. When I opened it up for the first time, there were like, I have multiple audio interfaces, right? I have like the built-in one on the laptop, I have the audio interface one, I have the inputs, the outputs, and all kinds of. Oh, and on my desktop where I was doing this, I have my monitor is on there, and crazy me, I left my video, what do you call that, webcam plugged in, and it has a microphone too. So it's like there's just so much audio that didn't help. But long story short, again, just there's so much. So it's gonna take longer than 2 weeks for me to figure out
Yeah.
where Jack fits in, because it seems to me that Jack, you can't use Jack alone. It's got to have something else, and that something else is ALSA. So Jack sits on top of ALSA, and ALSA deals with the hardware, and then Jack is able to like reroute things through all these little hardware dealy bobs where you can edit the audio in transit and push it to multiple things. Where I saw where the whole IceCast thing was basically taking the mumble thing and then putting it out to an audio output that swung it out to IceCast. So just it's complicated. It's as complicated as I expected it to be, and it's gonna take some time to really understand how to make all that work the way that I want it to.
Yeah, I definitely think I want to dive into it some more, and I think it's a great topic for us to keep talking about on the show. Dan in the YouTube chat says that we're on the right track, so that makes me feel good about it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, he's the expert. I mean, I see his Carla, and it's fantastic. There's a bunch of stuff in his that I would love to implement on mine, but I also kind of want to not have crashes or not understand why something's not working like 5 minutes before a show or something. So it's just practice going to be needed for a lot of that. Well, the last thing I'll say is the whole reason why, at least for me, the Jack conversation started in the first place was because my Focusrite audio interface. I did not have this issue with my Behringer interface before, which I have on my desktop now. But for some crazy reason, and there was somebody in the YouTube chat the first time I talked about this that had the same issue. If you're listening, I cannot remember who you are, and I'm sorry, but if you're listening now, this is the answer. I have figured it out. So what will happen is my Focusrite, if I use the audio output from my Focusrite to drive my headphones and listen to you guys on it and whatever, eventually, and it's random, it could be 1 minute in or 20 minutes in, it will just pitch shift my voice down like a whole octave. It'll just be like, hey, by the way, you're lower now. So I don't know why it does that, explicitly why. There's no error message or message in syslog that will tell me anything about what's going on. But from a high-level view, I know what's going on. Pulse is, for some reason, dropping me down from 48,000 hertz to 44,100 hertz. And that then drops me an octave because things are moving slower from the audio interface to Linux at this point. It doesn't happen in Mac. So I knew it was a software issue. And I use this thing for work, which is where all that comes from. But the idea was like, okay, what I need to do is force Pulse to never drop me down. And I didn't know how to do that. So after a few minutes of Googling, I found out that there's a file in Etsy Pulse called demon.conf.
Damon.
Yeah, I vote Damon.
No, see, it's okay for y'all to be wrong. It's okay.
I
I'm
agree
okay
with Leo.
that. Yes. All right, 2-2.
I
Well, I'll
agree
take
that you're both wrong.
So in Etsy Pulse demon.conf, there are 2 lines. One of them, and they're both commented out. So you've got to uncomment them by removing the semicolon. It's default-sample-rate and alternate-sample-rate. The first one is default to 48,000. The second one is default to 44,100. This is exactly what I thought. And I'm like, I found it. So I uncommented them, set them both to 48,000, saved it, restarted Pulse Audio with Pulse Audio-K. I have not had an octave drop since I've made that change. And I've done this change on 2 separate distributions. So I know it's not just a Mint thing or an Ubuntu thing. I did this on OpenSUSE as well. So it works. This is the fix that I've been waiting for. And half as a joke, half serious, I made the joke the other day to Joe that if I couldn't fix this in Linux, I would just buy a Mac. So price is averted. No Mac.
Saved you a lot of money.
Okay.
Well, I would only buy
just-
secondhand, and one that I knew I could install Linux on sometime down the road, and that looked like the 2017 mid 2017 Macs can do that. So I don't stray too terribly far, but if it comes to audio, I don't know, man. If I have to, I will.
I just looked up the pronunciation and I was wrong.
Oh, really?
No, actually,
well, I'm not willing to admit it. So
I will. No. To y'all's credit, Wikipedia says either. So I'm gonna go with Wikipedia on that. It's just an old English thing, and I remember there's another pronunciation of it too that is not either of the ones that we were saying. It was like Damen or something like that. I don't remember. Moss would probably come in here and get us some like old English pronunciation going on or whatever. But he's not here today. But he was also a Damon kind of guy. So
I want to add 2 things to your segment before we move on. Like, all right, so you're forcing yours at 4,800. You said, right?
48,000.
48,000. I'm sorry. So I had the exact same problem because did a Saturday meeting where I sounded like Barry White, like I was super low because
That was awesome.
because of the same problem, and I didn't know that I could force it in bolts. So I'm glad to have that information, that file in Etsy that we can change.
Yeah,
That's exactly why my mic started working, is because I used Jack to force that setting to 44,100. And so I don't think it's necessarily that your setting should be one or the other. I think it's just that whatever your mic is, the setting in Pulse or in Jack needs to match that. Like if they're different, then that's whenever you get either the octave higher or octave lower by mistake. Because I actually know a Windows user, the guy that does Electric City Nerds with me. One day we had an episode where we tried to start the show and he sounded like super low, and he had just bought a new USB microphone, and the setting on his microphone was different than the setting within the Windows microphone settings. Once we matched those, whether it was 48 or 44, as long as they were both the same, it seemed to work fine. So I think the trick is just to force it so that it can't change while it's in use.
Yep. Yeah. So, and it made me feel really good because I saw other people having the same issues on different operating systems too. But the one thing that did not change was doesn't happen in Mac, like ever. So, I mean, credit where credit's due.
Yeah, but I'm also using my USB interface for audio right now, and it's working without changing the octave. Now that you've forced that setting, is it working for you also on Pulse?
Oh yeah, I forgot to say that. Yeah, I totally jumped in with both feet on this one. I'm just using it, and if I drop an octave, you guys got to tell me, because yeah, man, I'm just winging it today, dude.
All right.
I left Audacity on for like 3 hours, came back and threw my voice in the mic a couple times, and then went back and listened to it. Not a single drop. It would happen most egregiously when I was listening to stuff, especially in a web browser. So I went to YouTube a few times, played a couple songs, and then came back and tried it, and seems okay. I think this really is a permanent fix.
Okay, I've saved this. I had a similar problem. I have a fairly new USB audio interface, and I only tried to use it to talk to this group of folks one time, and my mic was okay, but it was what I was hearing from everybody else that was an octave too high. So I don't know if this fix would apply to that or not, but I may give it a try.
It probably would. Yeah, I can almost guarantee you it would, because I mean that's essentially what Bo's issue was. So you fixed it, but you broke us or something like that, right?
Yeah. Every time I would change the setting in the Pulse settings, it would you guys would hear me fine, but then you guys were like really slow and really slow,
and it wouldn't last.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd sound fine for like a minute, and then you'd go back to sounding like you were extremely slow without pitch correction.
Yeah,
I think that probably is your problem, Tony.
Yeah,
it's crazy that like just within, we never even knew this was an issue. We've already found like 5 cases of it.
Yeah, seriously. I've been sitting on this one for a little while, but yeah, it does make me feel a little bit less, I don't know, failure-y that everybody else is having this issue too. But the good thing is we figured it out.
And it's an easy fix too. That's great.
Yeah, that was way easier than I expected. And for as long as I've been suffering from this, I should have figured it out a long time ago. Anyway, yeah, so my wandering segment ended up becoming extremely long, but I think that's where most of our Jack stuff ended up. So, Bo, I'm kind of excited to hear more of your Jack stuff here in a little bit. But until we get there, Tony Hughes, what have you been up to?
Okay, I'm back.
Yeah, and welcome back.
Thank you. Sorry for missing the last show, but on the Sunday morning that we were supposed to be recording that evening, my time, I went to the cash machine and bent down because it was a very sunny day and the sun was shining on cash machine's screen. I couldn't see it. I bent down and my back decided to go into spasm. Not a major one. I have in the past ended up on the floor and not been able to get up and had to get the paramedics out. But yeah, it was bad enough that it was very uncomfortable for a few days. So that's why I didn't come on the show that evening. I did manage to join the Biddle Euro last week, and I enjoyed that. And my back kind of held out long enough for me to take part in that. And yes, since I was last on the show, I've returned from Woodbrook, and I'm going back again a week today. For another 2 weeks. So, and then after that, we're going to Scotland for a week's holiday a week after I get back. So I'm going to have to work out my timings about whether I can be on the show for some of the time in October. I'll definitely be on the next one because even though I'll be at Woodbrook, I'll have Studio Z set up and I'll be able to join in from there. But the last couple of weeks, I've been carrying on doing some of my die-cast cars. And one of the things some of the community do, they do a Paint It Pink challenge to raise awareness for cancer during October. October's particularly around breast cancer awareness. But over the year, most of the months have got some kind of cancer awareness, but they've chosen October to do the annual Paint It Pink. So I did mine a bit early because of being away for most of October, and I've posted a couple of videos on my YouTube channel that's linked to my email address. So if you want to take a look at that, there's a link in the show notes for that, and I'll probably post more small short videos of some of the results of some of the other cars I do over the next few months on there. And because of that, I've started playing with OpenShot to do some basic editing on the videos that I take on my phone, because if I'm using it in portrait mode, it doesn't come out very well on YouTube. So I'm learning how to scale it and crop it a bit so it comes, A, you get a bit closer, and B, it's a little bit more user friendly for the YouTube format. So that was that. And then of course myself and Moss recorded Distro Hoppers last Thursday, and after a few final tweaks today, I pushed it and made it live. So episode 16 is now heading to your podcatchers if you've got it queued up by RSS, or you can go on the blog and download it direct from there. We did 5 reviews this month. Dale
Got to make up for lost time, right?
Yeah, Dale joined us and did a review of Solus Plasma, and me and Moss did 2 each. So we're giving the listeners the good value for money. Oh, sorry, they don't pay for it, do they? Just like this show.
You forgot to talk about the cars.
Pardon?
You forgot to talk about the cars.
No, I've just been talking about that.
The ones you sent?
Ah, yes. Well, do you want to mention that, Joe, seeing as you were the first to say yes?
Oh, no. You made them, so...
Yeah, I did these a picture up of a Lamborghini Marzel model on the YouTube channel, but I've done a special for all my co-hosts with the mintCast logo put onto the bonnet with a little decal, which is great, and it's come out really well actually. I painted all the cars silver, and the decals come out really smart actually. I was quite chuffed with it. So they went off in the post to the US. So postal services being what they are, I don't know how long it'll take to get there, but they'll be on the way soon.
It's sometime between 2 weeks and 2 years.
Hopefully it's not 2 years. At least if you get them for Christmas, at least it'll be a little Christmas present. So that's me anyway. So I'll pass over to Joe now, and you can give us your tales.
Yeah. Well, Moss isn't here for me to talk books with, but I'll just go over real quick what I've been listening to for the past 2 weeks, and that's The Privateer Tales by Jamie McFarland. It's an 18-book series, although some of the books in it are extremely short stories, like 30 minutes. Oh, well, I guess that's, like 90 minutes for most people, but yeah. It's actually a very interesting space opera, and the author is very prolific, and I'm going to be checking out a bunch of the rest of his series. A couple of them were even listed in the last show. So also from the same author, Wizard in a Witchy World, book 2 and 3. And for this one, it's just imagine the guy from Unsolved Mysteries, that's Robert Stack, reading you a book. It's kind of like that, and that's kind of awesome. But moving on, I got the Ring video doorbell and a Ring spotlight camera. Really easy to set up and install, really easy to use. The Android app integrates with Alexa very well. Sadly, there's no Linux installation or access, so I can't view it from any of my PCs. I chose Ring because, well, it's more likely to be accepted by the authorities than a roll my own solution. And honestly, with a roll my own solution, in 6 months, if something goes wrong, I'm not likely to fix it because I'm going to be bored with it. The reason I got this is because my neighborhood has seen several vehicle break-ins lately. Like, people will just go through and check door handles on vehicles and see if they can open it up and try and grab anything out of it. Also, porch piracy and garage robberies when the garages are left open. It's been happening a lot. And the thing that really kind of cut it for me was my neighbor had their car stolen from right out in front on the street. And I'd like to help prevent that type of thing. And hopefully, well, they haven't complained so far, and it's been a good week. My floodlight camera is not a nuisance for my neighbors. I mean, I can adjust it a bit if it is, but they got to tell me. It's much more expensive than any of the roll my own systems I've done in the past. But like I said, it's more likely to be acceptable to the authorities than something I built myself. I don't have any cameras in the house, though, just outside, and I prefer it to stay that way in case there are. I know that there have been security issues with Ring in the past, but if somebody hacks my Ring video doorbell and says horrible things to the Jehovah's Witnesses that occasionally knock on my door, I'm okay with this. I've been working on my new workout routines. It's coming along pretty well, really kind of feeling it, which is a good thing. So I don't want to get too deep into the changes I'm making to my workout routine. Just felt like mentioning it. I did build another macro keyboard, and I like this one better than the previous one I did. It's much lower profile, and I switched to PET G, and that should be a lot sturdier than the PLA Plus I was using before. With the PET G, I've been using rafts because I understand that it has a tendency to be hard to remove from glass, and the rafts definitely make it a little bit easier and it doesn't stick as hard. And I'm really surprised, for just having started out with a new material, of how well I've been doing with it, because I'd been led to believe that PET G was more difficult to print with, and that really hasn't been the case for me. It's basically, other than some temperature settings that I needed to tweak along the way, it's been really easy. Also, after watching a few Ben Heck videos, I had ordered a small roll of multicolored ribbon cable, which made the soldering much neater and a whole lot easier to cable manage and make that slimmer profile of the keyboard really work well. And this one is 4x3 instead of the previous 6x2. But it has the same code in it, and I think I'm going to have to completely redo the code for it because it's lacking some versatility that I would prefer it to have. Instead of an auto hotkey, I'd really like it to be the actual macro keyboard. It came out very well. Like I said, I'm really enjoying it. Also, I picked up a mechanical Bluetooth keyboard with full numpad for an exceptionally good price. It's the Logitech G613, which normally retails for about $75, and I got that for $25. It is extremely heavy for a keyboard at 3.2 pounds. I mean, there are laptops lighter than that. And like I said, I picked it up for $25, and the only thing wrong with it was the F3 key was completely broken off, and it uses roamer switches instead of the cherries that I have in stock, so I had to order a few, and that was a bit of an ordeal because they lost the first package or sent the first package back, so I ordered a different set, and it turned out to be a super simple replacement to get the because it was broken down to the pins, and so those two little pins that come out of the bottom of the key were just like stuck in the board, and I thought it was going to be a big old ordeal to get it out there, but it took 10 minutes to get it out and get the new one on. It took more time to take it apart than it did to do the desoldering and resoldering, and just a bit of flux and some solder wick, and the old pieces came right out along with the solder, and the new one popped right into place. A couple more seconds with the soldering iron and some solder, and it was good to go. And this particular keyboard has both a dongle and Bluetooth capabilities, so I really like that I can use it with two machines very easily.
Wow, you got a good deal, man.
Yeah.
And you got that keyboard right after the announcement of Bluetooth, huh?
Yeah, I did. But I haven't completely read the Bluetooth article, but it looks like it can take over control of your Bluetooth device and
Yep.
rewrite the encryption on your Bluetooth device.
Yeah, I think we're going to spend a lot of time talking about just Tony and Bo's kind of security posture this episode, but I want to come back around in the next episode. I want to talk about Bluetooth because it's a really interesting one. I've always avoided Bluetooth keyboards. I'll do a Bluetooth mouse, but I refuse to buy a Bluetooth keyboard because of just the inherent flaws in Bluetooth. And Bluetooth is just another example of that, man. Ugh.
Well, because I use a lot of tablets and smaller form factor devices with less USB ports or USB ports,
I thought
I kind of have to go with Bluetooth.
I thought Bluetooth was really short range, though, so you'd have to be really close to be able to hijack it.
Well, Joe is apparently in an area where there's people walking by the house all the time trying to steal stuff out of his garage. So there's no telling who's lurking around.
Yeah, but I doubt that they're war driving for Bluetooth around here.
I mean, I would be.
Yeah, but we're a statistical anomaly.
This is true. I'm just saying, man. Like, I would do that.
I haven't been war driving in forever. Oof.
I think the overwhelming likelihood if you got Bluetooth hacked, it would probably be by one of us. Outside of that, you're probably fairly safe.
Leo just drives by my house randomly to hack my Bluetooth.
Listen, all I'm saying is you had to give Tony your address, and he did that in a at least within us, a very public way. So I just kind of know where it's at now.
I'm not worried about. Hey, you know what? If you show up to hack my Bluetooth, stop by and you can cook me some Mexican food. And
I was gonna say
I can't cook.
That's how I will apologize to you. Like, sorry, I changed your router's password. I'm not gonna tell you, but I did bring you a taco.
I would laugh if you hacked my router and changed the password. I would definitely laugh. I'd get a kick out of it.
I love doing like 40, 50 character passwords on WPA2. So it's going to be something
I love
stupid
30,
long.
30 resets.
That'll work. That'll do it.
Okay. Oh, also, I'm on a new microphone today. I traded for a new microphone because I wanted to test it out and maybe replace my backup mic, which is the old Snowball mic, which I never really liked the quality on that. So I got a HyperX Quadcast, which is about $150 microphone, new, which I traded my old Dell Venue 8 Pro that I was no longer using, and one of the USB 3.0 ThinkPad docks. And I think I got a good deal for what I paid for each of those, because I got both of those in lots, and except for the power supply for the ThinkPad dock. So I think that turned out pretty well. About $50 to $60 worth of stuff for a $150 microphone. But yeah, it's used, and it was missing the mount, the standard adapter mount to make it fit on a boom arm. But I'll get to that in a second. Really, with this microphone, I think it makes a better interview mic than it does a solo podcasting mic, just because of how much of the room it picks up. It's really the type of thing you want to use in a very isolated room with some very good sound isolation built in. But it's working pretty well today. And the guys from the Linux Lugcast helped me test all the different settings, and this was just day before yesterday. And it is as dialed in as I can make it right now. Also, I designed and 3D printed the adapter for the boom mic arm. I had bought one that I thought might work after I took it apart, but it turned out that the Y bracket on it was too small. So I designed my own, and it only took like 2 or 3 different iterations to get it just the way I wanted. And the first couple I printed out on like extra super fast drafts, so they were practically falling apart, but it gave me the spacing that I was missing from when I'd had my caliper out and was getting all of the different measurements that I needed to design this. And it's worked out really well, and it's on my boom arm right now, and it's printed in PETG, and it's really great. I couldn't use a lot of the original hardware because it was easier to design it around the bolts that I had in my garage. So I have posted pictures of it in a couple of places. I don't think I did the most recent iteration, but I'm really liking how well that turned out. Now, something Linux Mint related. I know that's unusual for me in my bi-weekly wanderings. I found an interesting configuration change in Linux Mint that I find very useful. It makes it so that the numlock key does absolutely nothing, and the numpad is always a numpad. I really don't need it for directions. I don't know if anybody else uses it for the arrows and the directions on that, but I really seriously never use it. And it's under keyboard, layouts, and then numeric keypad always enters digits. But that worked on my laptop, but for some reason it didn't work on my computer in the garage. Now, I don't know if that was the keyboard I was using, or it's because I really need to do a fresh install. But it's working well on my laptop. I really like it that I don't accidentally hit the numlock anymore and start putting in directions instead of numbers. And in further soldering news, had to redo both sets of my MMCX modded one more triple driver headphones, and I have a third one that I'm getting ready to turn into MMCX. I changed up some of the techniques that I'm using for tension relief on them, and I hope that it will give a slightly better longevity. I really don't want to be redoing this every 6 months, but I understand that can happen. So that's really all I've been up to. Bo, how about you?
So I wanted to ask you about your ring. Said you couldn't view it on any of your Linux machines.
Oh yeah,
Do
I
they
meant to
have
ask this
the-
too.
Yeah, don't they have the? Do they web version though? Right?
No, they have a Windows version and they have a Mac version, but they don't have a web version and they don't have a Linux version.
I wonder if you could run that in Wine though.
I wonder if you could run that in Wine, or if you could actually get Anbox to work with it.
Yeah, speaking of wine, but yeah, just to interject, because this totally reminded me that I should have added this into my wanderings, but it was way too long, so I shouldn't. I got Space Cadet Pinball running on all of my Linux distros now. You guys remember that one?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh man. So yeah, I think 2 million something is my current score. I gotta crank that up because there's like a Twitter battle going on right now.
Gonna work free ski next.
What was that?
Or whatever the free, what was the skiing one that they used to have, where the little ski dude would follow your mouse, and then if you went too far, a little abominable snowman would come out and eat you.
Oh, I remember this. Oh man, I can't remember the
Was it
name
vaguely
of it.
remember that.
Was it
It's
called
like
free
downhill
ski?
something?
Something like that. Yeah.
Oh,
I'll-
downhill something. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll look
I
it
don't
up
know.
while you go through your stuff.
I don't have much to add to the Jack conversation. And outside of that, I've basically just been I've been playing around with Tabletop Simulator. I don't know if you guys have ever used this, but they have a Windows and a Linux version, and you can get it on Steam. But I play a lot of board games and card games, and I would do regular game nights with my friends prior to COVID. In 2020, all that, we basically kind of pittered out, and we weren't doing any game nights. And so we started using Tabletop Simulator, and people have told me about it like ever. I always
it's so
heard about
good. It's
yeah,
so
I'd
good.
always heard like you got to get Tabletop, and I was just like, yeah, it's neat, but it's not the same. Well, finally, 2020 has like forced me into trying it out, and I got to say that there are situations where I actually prefer it to physically playing the game.
Yep.
And
No.
it lets try out games that you don't own. It's so you can kind of get an idea for it before you go buy it.
And
Okay, so
it's Linux native.
cool.
And it's Linux native. Exactly, yeah.
Now with Tabletop Simulator, which tabletop games are you simulating?
So I've played Marvel Champions LCG, the Lord of the Rings LCG. Both those are like cooperative card games. I've played the Zombicide Tabletop Simulator. We got the Mansions of Madness. Played around with it. We haven't actually played a game on it. Go ahead.
Is there some type of meeting functionality built into that, or do you have to use Zoom? Because what's the point in playing tabletop unless
Discord
you're
or
talking
something.
smack?
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up, because that reminded me of another Tabletop Simulator like thing that you can also do on Linux. But I'll go back to that. So in Tabletop Simulator, you buy it on Steam, and so you inherently have to have Steam to play it. I don't think you can get a non-Steam version of it. And so anybody you play with would also need to be on Steam, and you can send them an invite. They have to own a copy of Tabletop Simulator, which I think is $20. But the games inside Tabletop Simulator, some of them are like official releases, and they may actually cost money, but there is like tons and tons of games that are free in their what they call the workshop section. And this is where like users of Tabletop Simulators will take scans of all the like stuff involved in the game. They'll make 3D models of the miniatures, and then they make it available, in most cases for free.
Yep.
And
so many free packs out there, man. You don't actually need to pay for very much.
I haven't paid for anything yet. I've just bought Tabletop Simulator, and most of my friends already had it. So what happens is you set up a game, and then whenever you set it up, you can say you're setting it up for a single player or for multiple people. And if you set it up for multiple people, you can just click on invite, and then it shows you your Steam friends list, and you can send the invite to whoever you want to on your Steam friend list. And then whenever people join the game, you say it's like at like a table. It's like 3D, like it's even a VR version, I'm pretty sure, but it's basically you're in a little virtual tabletop, and it has all the pieces to whatever game it is loaded. And in most cases, if not all cases, you need to know the rules of the game. It's not going to play the game. It's not like playing Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering Arena. It's not going to work the rules out for you. You can do whatever you want with the cards and with the pieces on the table. But so you and the other players have to know the rules, and you have to talk to each other and kind of say what you're doing. But other than that, it's just like playing a game on your tabletop at home. Like have the board and all the pieces, and everybody's sitting at different seats around this 3D table. And it's
totally just a stand-in for real life. I mean, because
exactly.
you can be a jerk in real life and start moving people's tokens around and stuff too. So yeah, just don't be a jerk.
Yeah.
Play the game.
Yeah, that's a good way of thinking. It's just a stand-in for real life. You do whatever you can in real life. You can even get mad and flip the table over if you want.
Yeah. That's the F key, I think, isn't
it? But there's certain things like I think Marvel Champions, that just the way that card game works, and there's lots of tokens and lots of pieces to it. I mean, sure, I enjoy playing it in real life, but it's just so easy for me to just, send one of my friends a message, and he says, "Oh yeah, sure, I've got a half an hour. We can do that real quick." And then we just jump on and we load it up. There's some of the mods have like pre-loading, so it'll set up your encounter deck and all this stuff for you. So that makes it a lot faster. And then whenever you're done, you just close it. Like in a lot of ways, it's less immersive, but it's way simpler. So you're weighing out, the simplicity and the ease of use versus like, it's not as immersive as playing like an actual tabletop game. So, yeah, I probably never would have tried if it hadn't been for COVID and everything that's happened this year. But I guess that's something I can be grateful of, is that I actually did try it out, and it has opened a new window to lots of different games. Like, I wanted to try out the Massive Dark 2. There's a second edition of this game called Massive Dark, and it's a game that I definitely would have went out and purchased. And then I tried it out, and I don't know if I'm on the fence now. So I may end up I don't know, I may still buy it just because it's got some really cool miniatures. But good way to try out a game in a rule system before you actually physically buy it. So even for that reason alone, it's worth the $20 just to try things out. But yeah, other than that, I haven't really been doing much other than moving into the new house, setting up the new podcast studio. So I guess I will pass this on to Tony to see what you've been up to.
Cool. Music, always music, although the acoustic gigs have slowed down a bit. Even after COVID, I was playing pretty regularly there for a while, but to be honest, I've always been a little lazy about booking gigs. Back in the good old days before COVID hit, I had a booking manager that booked me for this Mexican restaurant chain, and so I would just kind of sit back and let him fill my dates up. Anyway, I was getting lucky there for a while and was playing for a while, but the dates have kind of dried up, so I actually have to contact people and get dates on my own calendar now. But I'll do that. I played last weekend, but I don't really have anything on the horizon right now until I start doing some reaching out. But still have been playing. I'm in 2 active bands again. Echoes of Savages, of course. We kind of started getting together, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago. But I was playing with another band that we were just kind of starting to pick up with, covers, just kind of for fun. And that one is practicing at my house now that I've got the space like semi-finished. We've got everything over here to do that too. And still more one project in the wings. I had started playing with yet a third band that was going to be a 3-piece cover band and played it, for fun and for money as well. But as we were kind of talking about earlier, the full band opportunities are pretty limited to play. A solo acoustic thing outside. I'm finding a lot of that, but rock bands and especially original hard rock stuff, just not a lot of opportunities right now, of course. But looking forward to when there will be, but just kind of the way it is right now. I recycled a bunch of old computers in the process of getting my basement space ready for rehearsing. I did a little bit of a cleanup, still got a lot to do, but I have had these machines sitting around. I finally decided to recycle a bunch of them, and it was really more than I kind of realized I had let stack up. I decided anything older than a Core Duo I would have to get rid of. And that still meant I had 2 desktops and 4 laptops to recycle. So I dropped them off. They were all, single core, 1 gig of RAM kind of machines. And I kept stuff like that around because even those kind of things can do like retro gaming and stuff like that. I had thought about, loading them up to do like really old Windows games and stuff like that. But new hardware can do that. That stuff just had to go. It was taking up space. So I ran into a project that I thought I would talk about here a little bit. I had a hard drive replacement that I did and had to do some hard drive cloning for a laptop that belonged to my church. And so the reason on that, it's the machine that was used for the media and would put words on the screen and stuff like that. And the problem that it was having, there's a specific program called Pro Presenter that is real popular for churches to use for that kind of thing. And everything that happens from the beginning to the end of a service is loaded into this software. You know, it'll be song lyrics, you know, sermon notes, and, you know, sometimes videos and things like that. And the problem is when videos were loaded into this thing and you play them within the software, that there was some lag and skipping and stuff. So I was looking at that, and it looked like the bottleneck was hard disk, and it had a spinning hard drive in it. So I decided I would go to an SSD. Had a 1 terabyte spinning hard drive in it, and only, you know, maybe a fifth of that was used after this thing's been in use for years. So I didn't get a 1 terabyte. I got a 500 gig, and I was going to try to, you know, condense that volume down to the SSD. I was successful in doing it, but you know, I shrank the Windows volume and all that, and I was trying. I really wanted to be able to use it with my Ventoy disk. That's kind of like my, you know, startup disk for anything and everything. And I have Gparted and Clonezilla as live boot options in there, among a bunch of Linux distros and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I was having a hard time getting it to work with Clonezilla, and that's what I wanted to use. In theory, if you shrink all the partitions down on a larger disk to where all of the partitions would fit on the disk you're transferring to, it should work. Just wasn't working out. It was telling me not enough space. In the end, I figured out, I think, what was causing the problem, and I used a Windows software in the end to get it done, which really was not what I wanted to do. But I used a software called Macrium, and had a GUI and so forth, and you know, to give credit where credit is due, you know, it was free and it did the job. But the partition that was kind of throwing a wrench in the works was the partition that has the what you would use to do like a factory restore on the machine. Even the Windows software was telling me you don't have enough space to transfer, you know, these partitions to do a disk clone onto this other disk, and absolutely there was enough space, plenty to spare. But if it would let you kind of just check or uncheck the partitions you wanted to transfer over in the disk clone, and if I left that one partition out, it went just fine. So in retrospect, I think what I learned, if I would have just deleted that partition, and frankly it was worthless, it would have restored the computer to the factory Windows 7, which is never going to happen. Then it would have worked using Clonezilla. For whatever reason, that partition was problematic. There may be people listening that know why better than I do, but that was what was causing the trouble. Learning experience.
I don't know why, but I have had the same problem, and in the past I've used that program, Macrio Reflect, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
It does, if you're using a product like that on Windows, it does work really well, and it's nice because you can do it within the Windows installation. You don't have to boot to like a disk and then copy one to another. You can do it within a booted system.
Right, which is what I wanted to do, Bo. I wanted it to work so bad just using Clonezilla because I wanted to do that. It's like, you know, boot to a flash drive, it's Debian underneath. But anyway, now I know how I could have gotten that to work, but, you know, job done anyway. And it vastly improved the issue I was talking about, but didn't 100% resolve it. I went to reproduce the problem, and you know, I was able to catch it still skipping here and there a little bit. I mean, you know, probably 90% better, but the bottleneck now is the CPU. This program recommends an i7 processor. This laptop is about 5 years old and has an i5, and it's just, you know, processor was 100% pegged at times. So probably a new machine for them at some point, but that'll make things a little better in the meantime, I guess. Unless I can find some other fine tuning I might be able to do. Let's see. I was talking on the show last time about kind of looking around at a new phone, possibly. I did at least fix the issue that was driving me nuts on this OnePlus 3T, so I think I'm actually going to keep rocking it a little while longer. But I was getting a little irritated that the charge cord wouldn't stay connected very well. And, you know, I've had that issue in the past with some other devices, and just cleaning out the charge port with some canned air or maybe a toothpick to kind of dislodge things has done the job. I had tried those things and it still didn't really do the trick this time. But to be fair, I've used this phone longer than I've used any phone before. And so, yeah, just had some buildup. I got in there with a toothbrush and cleaned it out, and that's what ended up doing the tricks. So it's not perfect. I think the port does have some wear, but it's at least connecting enough that it'll stay connected. And the problem I was having before, if I would breathe on the phone and that cable would just come out. So I'm at almost 4 years with this OnePlus 3T, and really performance wise, it's still okay. So I guess it served me well.
We've hit that point, I think, in technology where you don't have to keep buying new stuff every year. But
Yeah.
Right.
if you want to, you totally can. But I think for the most part, yeah, I think I've been on this phone for the past 2.5 years now, and before that, my wife was on it for a year or so. So this
Yeah.
phone has been kicking for a long time.
Yeah. I was looking hard at that Pixel 4a. It's a good phone, I think, but given that this is the complaint I have with this one, I would like to move to something with wireless charging probably one of these days, and that anything with wireless charging is about double what I was looking at with that 4a. So I don't have a move I'm real excited about right now, and I got this working to my satisfaction, so I think I'm just gonna sit tight for a while.
Cool.
Last thing, and then we'll move on to some more show. Just thought I'd mention I burned some CDs and DVDs recently. Somebody asked me to do that, and it just occurred to me I had not done that in forever. I had them sitting in the bottom of a file cabinet and pulled them out. The reason was not, the happiest. It was somebody that my wife works with that had DVDs and CDs from a funeral service, and they wanted copies for their family members and stuff like that. But used Brasero to knock those out, just disc to disc copies, and made a few. And in the long run, I think what they're wanting is the audio from CDs they had put together for that service to be matched with the video from the DVD that they played on the slideshow stuff. And I can do that. I think I can surely do that in Caden Live or something like that. And I offer to do that too, but that's going to take a little bit longer. So that's a project for a later date.
That's cool. My wife recently brought home a DVD, and she was like, "So how do we play this?" And we just stared at each other for a little bit. I'm like, "Do we even have a DVD anything anymore? Because we don't have our PS3 anymore. I never bought a 4, so I have no idea if they even do DVDs. They might. And we got rid of our Xbox 360 like years ago too.
Yeah.
Those I think were our last DVD drives. I've pulled out a non-working DVD drive out of a really old computer. So there might be one sitting in a closet somewhere, but yeah, I don't know how we're gonna rip that DVD.
I have a couple of externals. I don't
Yeah.
think I have any computers of
Yeah.
mine that have a disk drive left in them, but I
Yeah.
have taken a couple of the ones that I've pulled out of laptops and gotten the enclosure so that I can make them externals.
There you go.
Yeah, I've got an old. Actually, that's not a bad idea. I do have a laptop with a DVD drive in it. I wonder if I could just get an enclosure. That's a fantastic idea. Thanks for that.
Yeah, and then you also get the bracket so that you can put another hard drive in that location on the laptop.
Yeah, I think that laptop is not worth putting a bracket in, but it's worth pulling a DVD drive out of, which is great.
I have old computers that are still in active use, so I do still have disk drives in a couple of these things, but I guess we'll talk about the gear we're using here in a little bit.
Nice.
So for now, we can move on to the news.
So in the news, we got a few different things. We kind of got a story going on a little bit, but there's a lot of good stuff happening in the community. And the first one is Windows Subsystem for Linux.
Yeah, so Windows Subsystem for Linux 2 is now able to read Windows file systems, specifically physical disk, which it wasn't able to do before. So they've added the ability to not only read ext4 or the like, if you use a certain flag, you can actually mount a Linux physical disk in your Windows Explorer. You use the flag WSL-mount, and within Windows, it'll be able to see just within the regular Windows Explorer. Before, you were able to read Linux file systems, but only, I guess, in a virtual or in a software sense. It didn't actually read physical disks. So that's the advantage. WSL looks a little nicer. Every time we talk about it, it looks a little bit better.
Yeah, this is actually really advantageous for me, and I can't wait until I actually get to use it. But the one downside of this is not partitions, right? So if you've got like a dual boot Windows Linux partition, you can't mount that in WSL2 if it's all on the same disk. You gotta present it the whole disk. So it's the same idea as like attaching a virtual disk in a virtual machine, because WSL2 really is a virtual machine. You're doing hardware pass through here. What the cool thing about it though is, in my situation, Moss would not agree with me, but I do one operating system per disk. Windows has got its own disk. Linux Mint got its own disk, and then I've got a third disk in my machine that I will do distro hopping with and play around with. But there has been multiple times where I'm like, I want to be able to get at my Linux Mint stuff from Windows. This is the solution for me. I'm able to fire up WSL2, attach my Linux Mint disk, and the whole disk is presented to me. Because the alternative was, I got to reboot into Linux Mint. I've got to push the file, because Linux Mint can read Windows partitions. I got to push the file to the Windows partition, reboot into Windows, and now I have access to it. But that is annoying. Or, back and forth to like my NAS or something like that. But the fact that I have to go into Linux to make it work is annoying, to say the least. And this fixes that. So this makes me really happy. I'm real excited for this feature.
Yeah, it is really nice. I hadn't actually thought about it in that light since you just mentioned it, because of, and we'll talk about this when we get into our setup, but recently I have installed Windows on another hard drive, and it's just like you said, where I have two physical disks, one for Linux and one for Windows, and I'm dual booting. And what I do is I have a third hard drive that is basically like just there for me to pass things between the two.
Yes.
Yep, me too.
Scratch disk.
And so, yeah, so this will kind of make so that that's not required anymore, and that third hard drive could be used for some sort of backup or I don't know, hell, anything else. But yeah, so
Another Linux installation, yeah.
there you go. Just install maybe Ubuntu Studio on that one or something. Really nice.
All right. What is this, Joe? NVIDIA has ARMs?
Yes. NVIDIA is actually buying ARM, and it's a $40 billion deal, and it's been all over the news lately, so I'm sure most people have already heard it. And it met through a combination of NVIDIA shares and cash, so it's not just a $40 billion cash deal, it's shares in NVIDIA as well. And it unites the NVIDIA's leadership in artificial intelligence with ARM's vast computing ecosystem to drive innovation for all customers. And NVIDIA is going to be opening up a new facility, or no, it's going to be increasing ARM's R&D presence in Cambridge. And they're going to be establishing a world-class AI research and education center. So they're going to be putting more into AI, which is really cool. And then NVIDIA has promised that they're going to continue ARM's open licensing model with customer neutrality and expand ARM's IP licensing portfolio along with NVIDIA technology. So it looks to be a good deal all around, but we'll see what the future brings in a year or two.
So ARM never made anything. They just made schematics, right? Like they never produced a chip. The way that it works, if I'm not mistaken, is that you go to ARM and you say, okay, I want to make this chip, and ARM's like, okay, well, we'll sell you the schematics for that chip, and then you can just go create it and then put that in a phone or a tablet or whatever. Does that sound about right?
It does.
Okay. So what do you guys feel about NVIDIA cornering the market on all this? The only alternative, I think, is RISC-V, right? So now you've got NVIDIA trying to corner the graphics card market, which they're doing a really good job at.
Yeah.
I mean, for a while. AMD is, I hesitate to say closing in. They're really not doing that. There's nothing that'll compare to the 3080 or 3090. But, you know, they are cornering them in the mid-market and the low-range market. So, I mean, there's competition there. But as far as ARM goes, there's nothing, right? So NVIDIA is just going to corner the market on ARM chips in general, and they're going to be in your phone.
Well, not as long as they do continue what Joe said and license other manufacturers to produce ARM chips. Because those other manufacturers will just come along and say, design me a chip for this, that, and the other.
Well, my thought on this is that NVIDIA is going to be like, oh, yeah, we'll totally license the ARM chip for you as long as you use NVIDIA graphics.
Well, hopefully
yeah, but then that would be anti-competitive. So wouldn't all the regulators around the world have a lot to say about that?
Well, they might after a while.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're going to get
right
away with a little slap on the wrist on that one, man.
Yeah.
I would hope that that's not how it goes, but I don't know. You see a big company gobble up something that is, I don't know, that's become pretty big in and of itself, and you just hope that they don't try and, yeah, I mean, be anti-competitive about it. So hopefully that's not how that goes.
And hopefully there'll be another strong player in this market at some point soon too. I don't know if that'll be RISC-V or maybe it'll be something else new entirely, but I have to think we'll have more competition in this space at some point, hopefully soon.
Well, you'd hope so. But I think RISC is the only other big player here, and they're not compatible either. It's not like you can just, say, all right, well, I'm just going to move to RISC and then move all your software to RISC. You can't do that.
Yeah, certainly not.
Yeah, so it's an interesting conundrum. I'm looking forward to just waiting for what happens if the sale goes through. I don't think the sale is official yet, but I mean, they wouldn't put out this info without it being pretty close. Next up, next GNOME version to be 40. So they went from 3 to 40. Yeah, there you go. That's a huge jump. So this is really just coming off of, so the current version that most people are on are 3.36, and the new version that just dropped a couple days ago is 3.38, and the new version that would have come out next would be 3.40. So all they really did was chop off the 3. It's just 40 now. The thing about this is, I think the biggest reason is that they want to not forget the past, but note that the current version of GNOME is not like GNOME 3.0. So this is just kind of a continuation of what they've been doing this entire time. So, long story short, they're going with the browser model, which is big old numbers for versioning. And yeah, hopefully a little bit less confusion, because it was always Greek to me that the odd numbered versions, so 3.35, 3.37, and 3.39 were the beta versions. So, if you ever scratched your head and wondered, why does it always end up as an even version number? Yeah, that's because every stable version was even, every non-stable version was odd. So, and that was just weird. So they moved to, there's going to be 40.rc, 40.beta, 40.0, and then as they start adding the incrementals that we're used to, like 3.36.1, .2.3, that will continue to be the same. So 40.1, 40.2, 40.3 as they come out. And yeah, so 41 will be the next version. So there's no even odd delineation on beta stable anymore.
Okay, so what do they do? Like, so before we knew that 3 was a milestone, and so like if they ever hit 4.0 or whatever, we would know that was the next dramatic change in the GNOME desktop. So what do you think they would do if they just had a complete paradigm shift, and what would be GNOME 4? They number that now.
As far as I can tell, they don't answer that question. So they answer why they need a new versioning scheme, and it was getting unwieldy.
Why 40? We answered that. They're trying to kind of break away from GTK 4.0. They're not trying to tie that in. But yeah, we don't really get an answer to your question, which is a really good question. I guess they tweet it extra hard. Maybe, I don't know.
It just I mean, maybe it's just this is a sign that that's not something that they're planning on doing anytime soon. Like they're
Yeah, I
sticking
mean,
to
yeah,
you
I
know
think
this paradigm.
GNOME.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think GNOME is going to stay what it is, and they may not do big mammoth changes like that. It may just be, okay, we're focusing on this, and we're changing this, and that makes it 41. And then we're going to focus on this, and that makes it 42. So I would imagine the GTK4 shift, whenever that happens, I think it might just be that's what we're focusing on in GNOME 42 or something. Anyway, yeah, the next thing that we've got on here is still in that same GNOME realm, which is GNOME extensions. The development is supposed to be made easier now by GNOME paying more attention to proper documentation, how extensions work, what the expectations are supposed to be for a developer, and then just getting more involved in the community. They plan on building a CI pipeline, centralizing extensions, and creating a forum. So, I mean, if you play on GNOME a lot, you absolutely know that extensions, they break all the time. And this is especially important if you're on something like Fedora or Manjaro, where it rolls and you just get 3.38 one day and all your extensions are broken.
right.
This is really frustrating for users, but it's even more frustrating for developers because you've got a broken extension in the first place. And then you've got users beating down your door saying, hey, your extension doesn't work anymore. This is crap. And, that's never a good situation to be in. I mean, as far as users go, you need to just chill out. But because I see that way too often, and it's way disheartening for anybody that's on the receiving end of that stuff. But the idea with this is that these breaking changes are going to be better communicated so that developers are able to hop on and fix these things before you ever get to that point. So this is a good thing. I think this is a really, really good thing. But I think it's really difficult in general because you have a pretty fast-moving project in GNOME, right? I mean, you got beta after beta. I mean, every couple of weeks there's a new version rev of the beta coming out that you need to pay attention to. Does your extension work on it? So I mean, if you're doing development for this, you've got to pay attention. And if you miss it for a little while and something breaks, then you're kind of in it. And kind of tying this together, this is pretty much the argument that the lead Arc menu dev had when he decided to just stop developing Arc menu this week. So we have on GitLab for the Arc menu team, you have Andy C., who was the main developer on GitLab for Arc menu, which is kind of, if you're running on Linux Mint Cinnamon, looks a lot like that, but for GNOME. And this doesn't mean that Arc menu is going away or anything like that. He has handed it off to Andrew Zake, who is the current lead JavaScript developer on the project anyway. So he's going to take over and move the project forward. But that's his reasoning. GNOME Desktop moves so fast that it just became too much. And so over the last year, that's kind of what's burned him out. So anyhow, that's just kind of what's going on. So we got new GNOME version numbering, we got better extension support, but we get to see what happens without that support, and the things like that happen. Well, speaking of GNOME 3.38, we got Ubuntu 20.10 release date slated. That's going to be on October 22nd. So what? They just hit feature freeze this last week. What does that actually mean?
The UI feature freeze, as we record this, I believe is happening now. That was as of September 17th. And so no changes after that date, basically, I think is my understanding there. But the timelines along with Groovy Gorilla, or as you say, October 22nd for the release date. UI freeze as of September 17th. The beta should drop on October 1st. Kernel freeze on October 8th. And then, release date to follow. So
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Features with that, we're going to see GNOME 3.38 and then kernel 5.8. So that will be a stable kernel, and I believe that means Linux Mint will eventually get that kernel as well, right?
Yes. But way before you ever get what is it? Hardware enablement from Ubuntu, right? So in 20.04, you'll get hardware enablement eventually. Usually that's like in November, December. But way before that, Linux Mint in its kernel selector utility will have access to 5.8 pretty much like within the week of release. So you should be seeing it roll down to you if you want to hop on that new kernel officially real soon.
Yep, and there will be some new features there. Among them will be support for fingerprint. There's Active Directory integration upon installation that will be there and just kind of built in. So some great new features coming there as well. Now, I have to say, one of the things I'm looking forward to with Groovy Gorilla is not in Ubuntu proper, but with Ubuntu Studio. And I believe in 20.10 is going to be the first edition of Ubuntu Studio with Plasma Desktop. So I'm really pretty excited to try that. So kind of waiting for that myself.
I'm in the same boat. I cannot wait for that. Just makes Jack easy, and I don't have to wonder whether or not it's going to blow up my whole installation.
I've always liked that project, Ubuntu Studio, and but I've not used XFCE for a while. So yeah, I think it's pretty interesting that they're trying out Plasma. I think it's a good move for them.
Yeah, it definitely is. Most of those tools are in Qt anyway, so I mean, it just makes sense. So the last thing, I reported on this one in Full Circle magazine, the weekly news, and it looks like if the feature freeze request, override request was accepted, they're dropping IP tables as the main firewall in Ubuntu, and they're going to replace it with NF tables. So I'll have to go back and look and see if that actually went through. But that means that Linux Mint 21 will have NF tables as well.
Oh, wow.
And that'll be a big divergence from the way that it works on Debian. Debian still uses IP tables. We'll probably still use IP tables in LMDE 5 or 6 or 7, or I don't know. They'll probably never change it. But yeah, Ubuntu, at least there was some chatter about moving over to NF tables instead of IP.
Red Hat still uses IP tables. I don't know who uses NF. I mean, besides now Ubuntu.
Yeah, it's fairly new, but I think there's some lower level hard firewall stuff that you can actually get done. So I'll have to look in it some more, and if we ever do a firewall episode or something like that, then we'll talk about it a whole lot more then. But it is interesting stuff.
I can nerd out on some firewalls with you.
Oh, that's right. That was your whole training.
Yeah, I went to France just to learn about firewalls.
That's cool. All right, well, as far as news goes, that'll do it. So let's move on down to the security update. All right, so we're going to forego news again here because Tony and Bo were not here the last time when I was picking everybody's brain about, what is generally your security posture? How tinfoil hatty do you go? And yeah, so Tony, let me start with you. How paranoid are you?
Not actually. I don't think I've ever worn a tinfoil hat. It is an interesting topic, but one of the reasons I actually got into Linux in the first place was because it's innately more secure than Windows. Now, obviously, part of that reason is because Linux is a very, very, very small niche operating system in the desktop market. So most of the, how shall we say it, the viruses and things like that are targeted at Windows machines. So I've never been overly paranoid about running security stuff on my desktop machine. I do usually set up the firewall, but even then it tends to be the basic setup. I've never, set up anything more than just basically switch it on. And that seems to work for me.
Yeah, I think we actually mentioned something like that on the last episode, where you just choose public, and it will handle pretty much everything that any unscrupulous folks might throw at it anyway.
Yeah. So that's basically all I've ever done on my desktop machine, security-wise. As for the phone, that's a slightly different case. I've noticed more and more when you install new apps that a lot of them ask for permissions that you think, why are they asking for permissions for, accessing things that they shouldn't really need, like your camera or your, your contacts and things like that. So first thing is to say, no, permission denied. And if it says, oh, well, this means it won't work, bye app. It usually goes out the window, and I look for something else that isn't potentially spying on me, basically.
That's a good posture to have, actually. I love the per app permissions for that, for the fact that it will literally alert you to, hey man, this thing's probably going to scrape your data and send it off somewhere.
Yeah, so I do keep an eye on that when I install new stuff, and if it says anything iffy, obviously there's some apps that legitimately need access to your camera, or they need, obviously your camera app needs access to your camera. So if you're going to use it, but obviously things like your phone book and stuff like that need access to your contacts, but there's not much other stuff that would need access to that. My Facebook app occasionally asks for access to my contacts, and I say, why? And I just say, no, thank you.
Yep.
You're not getting it.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, you had to have root access to be able to turn off permissions for specific things by app, and I did that. It's one of the things I would do with. I don't remember how that worked now, but thankfully that's something you just have built into Android now.
Yeah. The other thing I do also only activate when I definitely need it is, we were talking about Bluetooth security earlier on, and I only ever access my Bluetooth on the phone when I need it in the car for using my hands-free phone set. And most of the time, Bluetooth switched off. Occasionally, if I'm listening to music over Bluetooth or I'm using my Bluetooth speakers, I'll activate it for that as well. But most of the time that stays switched off, and GPS location gets switched off all the time. The other thing I don't activate is the Android Touch system. I've usually got that switched off as well. I think that comes on Bluetooth. I'm not sure, but I tend to leave that switched off because I don't use contactless payments on my phone or anything, so I don't need it activated for that. Yeah, I'm pretty tight on my phone, but my desktop machine, I'm a little less worried about that.
Yeah, I think both me and Joe kind of sat on that as well, where it was just, if it stays at home, you're not really, risking a whole heck of a lot by, not setting up the firewall. But, if you take it away, if you move it somewhere, then yeah, you need to pay attention to it because, yeah, I mean, you're exposing yourself.
Yeah.
Good calls. Well, Bo, what about you?
And you should always be cautious about exposing yourself.
This is true. So, Bo, how much of a tinfoil hat do you wear?
Oh man, I have a total duality on this. Like I live a double life because I have high convictions towards trying to keep my information private and trying not to give too much away for free or allowing access. I mean, I have high convictions on these things, but so know that I also take advantage of the ease of just being able to link everything to my Google account and just that ease of use and not having to spin something up and set something up, for myself. And so, yeah, I kind of I'm of two minds. I'm a like I could preach to you why you shouldn't do something, but I will probably do that thing. So it's pretty tough for me. I will say that I don't post a lot on social media, even though I am on social media because of the podcasts. But that's kind of the thing is like I think I would be more apt to being a lot more off the grid if I didn't do podcasts. Like I'm gonna have to have social media accounts and use Google services in order to do these shows that I do, and I need to be able to promote them. And so that kind of always ties me to the beast, even though I think if this was not my hobby, I think I would have already just left it altogether. I wouldn't have a Facebook account. I wouldn't have any social media accounts. I would use Google account just for Google services, and it would be attached to none of my personal, data, or as little as possible. But yeah, I don't actually do that in practice. Attached to anything. I have a Ring doorbell. I have used the Echo. My PCs are pretty. My PCs are not necessarily for security reason, but just because I'm a nuke and pave like constantly. Like I don't have anything too precious on my laptop or my desktop. If something is that important that I can't lose it, I'll either store it on a online service somewhere, which again is kind of a negative thing, or I'll have it on an external hard drive or some other place other than my PC. I can pretty much wipe any of my PCs and reinstall an OS at any time, and I'm not really of fear of losing anything other than what I'm working on at that moment. So yeah, I don't know. I think I kind of have like a wishy-washy kind of answer on this. I don't really know that I'm all that protective, but I also think that I should be.
Well, I mean, there's some really easy ways to fix some of the stuff that you were mentioning. You were saying that,
Mhm.
document stuff like that you can save them. You don't have to save them in Google Drive. You can save them if it's just text, like ID numbers or something like that. You can store that in a free service like Bitwarden, where you control the keys, you control everything. You can store your passwords in there as well. I mean, that's what that whole service is about. And you can share it with your wife for free. And Jimmy, she can have an account, her own passwords, and then you guys can share between yourselves. And then you also have something like Proton Mail, where it will be encrypted mail all the time. So, real important stuff, just leave it to Proton Mail. Everything else, you don't have to fully do Google. You can just leave to Google.
So I use I think the one aspect of my life that I do really well on is I don't know any passwords. I don't know any of my passwords to anything except for the one KeyPass password. That's the only password in my life I know, and everything else is some just way overcomplicated, super long password.
Well, that's good. That's awesome. So there is a little bit of paranoia there then.
Yeah, and well, I get it from work because we already have to do that for work, and so I just started doing it at home as well. And so like that kind of carried over from that. But I think that's probably the healthiest aspect of my security life right there.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned social media there, Bo. One of my pet things is when I see friends or family posting it's their XX birthday on Facebook.
Yeah.
So they've just told everyone how old they are and what their birthday is. Two of the really important pieces of information that people need to steal your identity.
I will say this too. Here's a bit of paranoia. I lie about where I work and where I went to school and things like that on Facebook, and I don't think I answered those kind of questions on anything other than Facebook. But yeah, what's on there is not trustworthy. It's not really my work history.
Smart man.
And I don't have LinkedIn, or I have a LinkedIn. And it's somewhat accurate, but it hasn't been updated in like 10 years, so I basically don't have a LinkedIn.
You shouldn't lie on your social media. You should lie on all the recovery platforms.
That's a
all
good
the
point.
recovery questionnaires. You
So
should.
as long as you know the answers, as long as you know the lies, then you can still get your stuff back.
What a
Right.
web of
But
lies we weave.
most of
Yeah.
the rest of the stuff, your birthday, somebody can figure that out eventually.
Yeah, I think my birthday is accurate actually, but
The place where you were born, somebody can figure that
Right.
out. The place where you work, somebody knows that. So you lie on all of your questionnaires for your password recovery. Just make sure you always use the same lies,
Yeah.
so you don't forget it. Otherwise, it's
Yeah,
kind of pointless to have a recovery.
I see what you're saying. So what you're saying is that if you lie on the recoveries, then even if someone, even outside of social media, they could figure those items out about you, then they now have the answers to your recovery questions. Versus, you don't care if they know where you really were born, because the answer to that question on your recovery is absolutely not where you were born.
Correct.
That's a really good. I like that. That's a really good philosophy to have.
All right. Well, that'll do it for our security section. We'll get back into some of the doom and gloom next episode now that we kind of know where everybody sits. And this is plenty of information to go hack somebody with. Yay. Great. Speaking of posture. All right. Well, then that'll do it for security. Let's move down to Linux innards. So in this Linux innards, we're going to do the same thing. We didn't have Tony and Bo here last time to answer the question about where you sit on proprietary software, FOSS. And the question really was, do you think that a lot of the people in the community's insistence on using FOSS, is that holding us back? So, Tony, again, we'll start with you and just kind of get what's going on in that brain of yours as far as this goes.
Yeah, again, I'm quite pragmatic. My first choice tends to be open source software, for me personally. But I run an NVIDIA card on my desktop PC, so I've got the NVIDIA drivers installed. That makes it work better. So if something's closed source but works and provides a solution to do it, I'll use it. As for proprietary software or open source software holding Linux back, I don't think it is really. The things people always quote is Photoshop, and Photoshop is a very niche package. The majority of Linux users, if they're editing photos, unless they're a professional photographer, and there are quite a few professional photographers using open source software out there.
Darktable, yeah.
Yeah, Darktable, various other things that are around. Raw therapy, those kind of things. And managing to do the whole workflow in open source software. But for those photographers that want to use Photoshop, they're already either using Mac or Windows. They're not going to change their working environment just to use Photoshop on Linux. So I don't see those kind of things as a major issue for holding Linux back. The other thing is, there are some open source software packages like Blender, which are industry leading. Blender's a massively powerful piece of software, but how many times do you talk about to an ordinary Linux user and say, "Oh, have you ever used Blender?" And they go, "What?"
Yeah, my eyes roll back in my head like it does with Jack when you bring up Blender.
Yeah, because it's just overkill for what most people would want to use it for. So there are a lot simpler solutions. It's like the difference between using some of the heavyweight open source video editing software compared with the simple stuff, or photo editing software with the simple stuff just for adding a couple of filters and maybe cropping a photo or whatever. The majority of users aren't into doing those things. So asking whether they're going to use Photoshop on Linux, I don't think it's the case. And more of this software is going online anyway. It's going in the cloud. You know, the Photoshop Creative Suite, the Adobe Creative Suite, it's all on the cloud now, and it's a subscription model.
Yeah, I just went and looked on Blender's website.
Yeah.
And Blender has a Linux version. And they also have a cloud version. Join Blender Cloud, $10 a month.
Yeah, so, you know, and I think it's available for Windows and Mac anyway, isn't it?
Yep.
And Linux.
Yeah. So, you know, if you're going to use those things, you're going to use it on the platform that you feel comfortable with. Some of the major studios do use Linux, and that's more to do with the power that they can get out of Linux. And for bang for the buck, really, rather than using Windows or Mac. Because if they can use Blender on Linux, they don't have to go out and spend double the money to get a similar machine capable of doing that software if they're buying Mac software, Mac hardware. So yeah, for me, I don't think open source versus closed source is an issue. I think the major issue for us is just the lack of knowledge in the general community and the way that technology is changing. Most people now, if they have a PC, it's usually a portable PC, it's a laptop. And many people now don't bother. They've either got the mobile phone, which they do most of their web browsing on, or they use a tablet. You know, they might have a Kindle Fire or something like that for doing their social media on when they're at home, and they take the phone with them wherever they go mobile wise. So yeah, that's my kind of input on it.
Cool. Bo, what do you think?
Well, you specifically asked what is it holding back, and in order to know that, I would have to say what is our goal. So like, our goal is to get more people using Linux, and the answer probably is yes. Is if the goal is to if you're philosophically opposed to closed source and you want to make Linux and open source better for people that want to use only open source, then it's probably helping that cause. I mean, it depends on what the goal is to say whether it's holding us back or not.
Yeah, and I guess the original intent of the question was, Linux adoption. So getting more people on Linux, does that hurt?
Yeah, and I think so. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think the longer that we don't have open source products that are as good or better than the Adobe suite, and I think that it's just going to hold people back from using Linux. And but again, I don't necessarily know that that's like, is our goal really just to have everybody use Linux? I mean, is that I lately I've kind of been of the mind of like, what if we just try to make things better for the people that are using it now, instead of just this like adoption mentality where it's like sweeping the nation. We're trying to just put Microsoft out of business and have everyone use Linux only. I mean, I just think that we may just have to come to terms with like Linux is made for like a certain set of people, and let's like try to make it better for that set of people.
Well, I think that has a lot to do with the people that insist on FOSS. I think that's a lot of the mentality that comes from, because if you use FOSS, then you're involved with it, and you're more likely to submit a bug report or make it better, or at least contribute. And if you do that, then FOSS becomes stronger. The FOSS alternative, GIMP or Glimpse or whatever, gets closer to feature parity to Photoshop than if you didn't have that many users. So, I mean, the insistence is not a bad thing, but I think really where the whole reason the question came up is because there are really, is important the right word? I don't know, really popular YouTubers out there that will just trash on you all day for using a Mac or using something not geared toward Linux or geared toward open source, but yet you use open source stuff or you use Linux. Well, why are you using that? Because the prompt for it was the Linux Foundation was caught using Macs for their presentations. And so
Yeah.
that really kind of drives this point home that, is pointing that out, not just pointing it out. I mean, because pointing it out's fine. It literally happened. It's a fact. Okay. But is harping on that fact and telling them that they're worse, that they're bad people, or that they make bad decisions because of it, is that helping?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think I don't think so. I think that I agree with the point that if more people only used FOSS or were passionate about maybe whatever they're, like we podcast. So if like we were just super passionate about only using open source, tools in our production process and in our podcasting and how we present the show and how we broadcast the show. And I actually think this is one area that Linux actually does really well. I mean, all of my audio production is on Linux solely, and I don't believe I use anything that's not open source. So I could be wrong, speaking just on the audio side of things. But if you focused on just that avenue and you only use those tools, and there's more people doing that, then yeah, that's more likely to make those tools better because people are going to be contributing to bug reports and contributing to making the code better and so on and so forth. But I don't necessarily think that that's going to bring more people to Linux because I don't know. There's just I just think there's people out there that just can't be bothered. Like I don't know.
I think part of the question as well should be whether whatever the platform is, whether it's Linux, Windows, or Mac, or another operating system entirely, that more software should be open source by default. If public money is used to develop software, it should be made open source.
I like that
for the
idea.
benefit of the public.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
I like that.
Yeah.
Whatever the platform is.
And that is something that actually could. So this is kind of contrary to my first point, but that is something that actually could bring more people to migrate from Windows to Linux. That if they're already using open source tools on Windows, and so the migration is just a matter of just installing a different OS, but they're already using Firefox, they're already using Audacity, they're already using GIMP, because these tools are just so good that even on Windows you're using them, then that's an easy transition for those people. So in that sense, I guess it actually does bring more people.
Yeah, it very well could. I mean, you what's the word where you just lead by example, right? I mean, that's it.
Yep. That was somewhat the case for me, for sure. When I first just moved to Linux, I was doing audio stuff with Audacity and had used it in Windows before. So yeah, those things for sure help.
And Tony, you're right. Me too. Before I was a Linux enthusiast, I'd already used Audacity. And what was the reason you used Audacity?
I was using it for recording live band stuff and chopping up the audio, cutting stuff out, that kind of thing.
No, the answer is because it was free.
It was available, right? Exactly.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. No, that's true as well. Yeah.
And so if there was more tools that was like GIMP and Audacity, that's like the go-to the go-to video editor that is available on Windows, and it's open source and it works just as well or almost as well as Adobe Premiere or whatever.
Yeah.
Then it adopted more so than the free tools we see now available on Windows, because there's a ton of free video editors available to Windows. There's not the open source one that is available on all platforms that is just as good. And I'm sure there's things. I mean, can you see Kden Live is not available on Windows. Blender does video. I've heard that, but I've never seen how it works.
We had
like it does 3D.
Oh, who did we have?
I remember when you guys
Gumster.
had him. I was not on the episode.
Yeah. I think if I remember correctly, he said it wasn't meant as a video editing tool. It is a 3D rendering tool.
So after that, I did go and look, and it turns out there are people that do real, actual video editing in Blender, like from top to bottom, same as you would in Kden Live. So it is totally a thing.
Well, and on the Kden Live and Windows, there is a Windows version of Kden Live. I didn't realize it until last show when we were talking. Yeah, we talked about the
Probably
Kden
more
Live
stable,
update
too.
in the last show, and part of that mentioned the Windows version, and yeah, I didn't realize that was a thing at all until about 2 weeks ago.
So maybe
Yep.
maybe there are options there. It's just a marketing thing. Like we're not promoting them as much. And
Right.
Now that's
I've
a
never
whole
used
nother
any.
discussion. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think more open source is obviously better than less. I like what you said, Tony, about the public domain thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's a
and-
big issue in the US and in the UK about public money for developing software, and then it gets close sourced, so you can't utilize it for other things where it might be useful in other areas.
The thing I think we got to remember though is just that we're a unique bunch. Like we're the people that actually care about this, and we're not the people to win over. The people that need to be won over are the people that do not care about this. They need to decide to use FOSS and open source because it happens to be available and as good or better. And
Yeah,
so I mean
Yeah.
that's the goal. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I mean, you don't win them over on ideology. They don't care. They're not gonna care, and you're not gonna make them care. What you do is just like you said, you make the software better than the alternatives, or as good as the alternatives, and then if they come across it, they may enjoy it. And if that also leads them to, hey, what's this Linux thing? Let's try that out too. Then, I mean, right. That's how it happens. Little
Sure.
by little, just like you said, Audacity is one of the very first things I brought you over. GIMP was one of the very first things that brought me over. And it
Yep.
just happens that way. The software is good. So
Yep.
our thing, what we need to do, and this is what I mentioned at the last end of the of last episode too, is we need to be the ones shouting out off the rooftops saying that, you know, this software is good. You should try this software out. If it doesn't work for you, that's fine. But give it a shot. And if it works for you, if you like it, send them a $5 bill.
What's the video
Support.
editor that has the shark on the logo?
Oh, Lightworks, but they are closed source if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, are they? Okay.
They
They
are,
happen-
but they do work on Linux.
I was gonna say they happen to be available on Linux. I wasn't sure. Well, I take back what I was gonna say.
Oh no.
They're a good. I think that software works pretty well on both Windows and Linux, but I guess they may not be open source.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Well, anyway, it's good to have that opinion. It's good to bring it all together, and you know, I think in general we would really like to hear what you think. Do you feel like the insistence on FOSS is holding us back, or is it the thing that's springing us forward? That is, I don't know, that's the question of the ages, right? I mean, that's something that we don't have a clear answer to. So what is your opinion on that? Send us some email and we'll cover it in the feedback. We'll talk about this a little bit more. I don't think you ever get to the end of this conversation. So we'll talk about it some more another time.
I think it could be a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Yeah, you're probably right.
If we're being honest, yeah.
The answer is always somewhere in the middle. It's never on one of the extremes. All right. Well, so to the actual topic that we were meant to talk about this entire time is our work from home setup. I'm sitting up here at the top, and I said I was going to fill this out during the show, and I totally didn't do that. So anyway, I'm just going to look at the hardware that I've got in front of me and just kind of talk about this. So I've got a little desk set up in my bedroom that has one of those long mouse pads on it. So when I rest my elbows on the table, it doesn't hurt so much. But really, I just like long mouse pads. I've got myself a nice mechanical keyboard with Cherry MX Blacks on it, a wireless mouse, and a laptop sitting in front of me, my normal laptop. For work, I bust out the Mac 2013 edition MacBook Pro 15-inch with like tons of RAM in it. But that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm very mobile as far as all this stuff goes, so it's not like I really have anything super special. The only thing super special I do have is I do use the audio interface and microphone that I'm using here for podcasting, my personal one, for work. Mostly because it's just convenient. It's an unplug from mine, plug into the work machine, and it just works. So that makes things really, really convenient. For webcam, I'm still using my my Android phone, my Nexus 6P. that is no longer getting updates, but is being used as my webcam. And it's really good. The only thing frustrating about it is when in DruidCam you have to recompile the software every single time you get a kernel update. That's annoying, but I mean, other than that, that doesn't happen often. I think maybe once every couple of weeks or something. And it's literally like 3 commands that you have in your history anyway, so nothing really changes. But I did just get in the mail today before the show a ring light. So I've been needing one of these for a long time because I always like to sit in the dark, and that doesn't work well with webcams. So this ring light is here to kind of illuminate my beautiful face on any kind of thing that I do webcam wise. So for work, it'll work for that, and for things like Big Daddy Linux, when I hop on there, it works pretty well for that as well. But I mean, to be honest, I'm a simple man. That's pretty much it. That's my work from home gig. That's what I do. I do have an iPad that I pretty much don't use because it's I don't know. I actually don't know why I don't use it. It's sitting there. It blings all the time with emails and Google Hangouts and stuff for work, but I ignore it and always respond to that stuff on the laptop. And I guess it's because the laptop has a better keyboard than this tablet thing does. I don't know. I don't know. I've got an iPad there, but it doesn't see much use.
You're already on the laptop anyway.
For the most part, yeah. I mean, I'm on something that has a full blown browser that I don't have to like. I can do split screen, man. I can do more than one thing at once. That I think is actually the biggest point of frustration for me is that alt tabbing is fine, but when it's your only option, you can't really do 2 things at once. Then yeah, it's really frustrating and it feels very claustrophobic. So I gotta have more screen space, man. More screen space. Anyway, like I said, simple man. That's about it. So Joe, what does your setup look like?
Well, I actually have 2 work from home setups. I'm a big fan of redundancy. But my main one is the MSI GE72 6QD laptop, which has an i7 6700 HQ and a GTX 960M that has a built-in 17-inch screen. And then I have a second monitor on a laptop table with a 32-inch TV on it. That table also has a mount for my 7130 tablet, so I can do other small things when work is slow or I need to look something up. The table that my laptop sits on has an articulated arm for my microphone, which right now is the HyperX Quadcast, although I still have the Samsung Meteor that I was using before. And yes, I do occasionally use that for work. I also use my Samsung Galaxy Note 10 all day, every day, with several of my custom-built LG HBS 770 headphones, along with a pair of Skull Candy Crushers if I want to listen to music, and a modded pair of Sony XB700s for when I can no longer stand the idea of using an in-ear monitor, but I want all-day wear. I also have a pair of 99 Neos for when it absolutely has to be wired, and those are just like really good sound for wired. Now, because I rely so heavily on my phone to be able to do my work, I mean, it feels like I'm in meetings 6 out of 8 hours of every day. I also keep my old Galaxy S7 around and charging just in case something happens to the Note. I also have my extra wide recliner that is seeing a lot of wear and tear lately because I end up spending hours and hours sitting in it, but it makes work extremely comfortable. And then I use, on that computer system, I use the Logitech K360 keyboard and M570 trackball mouse. Now, my router is the Asus AC2900. I had tried to originally set up, I think it was either the 3600 or the 3200, but they tend to have a flaw, and it's quite obvious as soon as you buy them. And Like for me, when I bought I think it was the 3200, it had the 2.4 gigahertz range or 2.5 gigahertz range just did not work at all. So I went back and got the 2900 instead. And that is powerful enough to handle all of my work stuff and my server stuff and all of the stuff the kids have to do for school every day. And that's, 3 kids in Zoom meetings and then plus me remoted into my computer at work and the various things I have to do with that. So I do have the 300 Mbps connection from Spectrum, which also gives me, I think, a 20 Mbps upload rate, which is pretty cool. I'd rather have fiber. I'd rather have a T round trip, but you work with what you got. Now, my backup workstation in the garage is also, just my garage workstation. Ryzen 5 3600, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and an RX 560. 2 LG TVs as monitors. 60-inch TV, the one that I got for free that had the bad HDMI board that I'm using the composite converter for. And a 43-inch TV that I also got for free because my friend was closing out his storage unit when he was between jobs. So he just like, here, want this TV? And I was like, yeah. And it worked out well. Now out there, that's where I'm using the Logitech G613 and another M570 mouse. And usually if I need a computer microphone out there, I'm using the Turtle Beach Z2s. And yeah, that's quite an extensive setup, but that's I like having the redundancy for work.
That's pretty cool. I didn't even think about talking about the router. But since we're talking about security posturing, I probably shouldn't, right? But too late. The Edge Router Pro ERPoE 5. So I've got 2 Ubiquiti Unify access points. One is it's the APAC Lite, I think. I've got that one in the front of the house, and I've got the APAC Pro in the back of the house because this is where I do all the podcasting and stuff. So I got to have the good Wi-Fi because I totally flaked out and didn't run cable back here. But I don't want to be up in the ceiling. So.
Well, I did have cable run out to my garage, but the kids, they use Wi-Fi, and I have 3 kids, and they're seriously putting stress on that every day. So that's a really good reason for me to have a really good router.
Oh yeah, and this is a big reason why I have the 2 access points, right? So I mean, I can hog up this one, and my wife and daughter can hog up the other one in the front of the house. So we're not fighting over the same access point, but as long as the internet can handle the traffic that we're dealing with, then it's not a Wi-Fi issue. It's a internet issue or something like that.
We got an Ubiquiti router whenever we moved to the new house, and it's made a big difference.
Oh my gosh! Hold on, which one? The USG?
We got the Amplify Alien.
Whoa,
Definitely
what?
a centerpiece. Yeah.
What the heck is this thing? Hold on, what?
It's pretty wild. When people come over, they see the router and they're like, "What the hell is that?"
Okay, I'm looking this up. What? This thing looks like an Alienware thing, man. What?
Yeah, it looks like some kind of home assistant device, but it's a router.
This is how they chip you, man. This is it right here. You got the Echo though, so it's already too late.
Right? Yeah, they were already listening on my conversations. It's not like it doesn't actually have a home assistant. Like I was looking at the Google Mesh. I wanted to do something Mesh because our old house I ran wires. This house, just being brand new, it just feels wrong for me to start drilling in the walls and stuff. At least after maybe we've been here for 5 years, then I'll start drilling in the walls.
There you go.
I don't see why new houses don't come with Cat 6 run everywhere.
Dude,
because Wi-Fi,
hilarious?
man.
We were looking in the office and we saw the phone jack, like for the phone, and my wife was like, "What is that? Is that Ethernet?" And I was like, it must be phone jacks. And she was like, wow, this house has phone because our old house didn't have any phone jacks because they took them all out at some point. And then we had them in the new house. And it's just surprising they're still putting them in houses because everybody's phones comes through their modem now, right?
Hold on. You don't need to drill any holes to run Cat 6 then.
I could just use the wires that are in the phone jacks.
No,
That's good.
no. Yes, you use those wires.
Yeah,
but
to fish
you use
the
it
other
to
ones.
to pull the other ones through, and there you go.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
But yeah, you're good.
But what we have is Wi-Fi 6, and it's so it's a Wi-Fi 6 router downstairs with 5 ports or maybe 4 ports, and it has a companion access point that we have upstairs, and it's Wi-Fi 6 connection between the two. It's more than a gig LAN, and that access also has a Cat 5, Cat 6 jack on the back of it, and so that's what I'm using to power my desktop upstairs. That access point. Pretty wild router, actually.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I like, I don't know, I tend to fall on the enterprise side. I mean, I'm just an enterprise head, so anything that you might find in a small business environment, that's what I want at home. So just so I can play with those features.
Yeah, I respect that. I was going down that route, and then it was just kind of, if we were still in the old house, that's exactly what I was going to do, was the edge router with access points. The only reason why we went this way was just being in a new house, and we just didn't want to go through all of that. But after I've been here for a while, I probably will do that in the future.
That's cool. Yeah. All right. So Tony Hughes, you're up next. What do you do? How do you do this? How do you work from home?
Oh, come on, what's work?
This is true. This is very true. Well, this is your work right now. This is you working.
Yeah. My work now is all my enjoyment. So, because even though I'm no longer working, I do actually use my PC quite a lot and for quite a lot of stuff. So, as well as numerous laptops, my main PC is my tower. And it's the one that I use for podcasting the majority of the time. Unless I'm on the road, I use my 15-inch Dell. But when I'm at home, I use the tower. So the specs of the tower are as follows. I've got a HP Compact Elite 8300, which is quite an old machine. It's got a 2012 Intel Core i7 3770 with 4 cores and 8 threads. It runs up to 3.4 gig. I've got 24 gig of DDR RAM, 3 RAM. A very, very ancient NVIDIA GeForce 8400 with only 256 of RAM. But yeah, at some stage when this tower eventually gets upgraded, my video card will be a little bit more up to date, shall we say. I use a generic keyboard and USB keyboard and mouse. So in the machine, I've got 1 terabyte SSD as the primary drive in my IC dock in one of the bays, and that's running Mint Mate 19.3. And I've also got an additional 2 128 gigabyte drives in the dock with Ubuntu Studio 2004 and Ubuntu Mate 2004 installed. And for some reason, I got this IC dock as a present, and it was only after installing it and starting to play around with it that I realised the 4th bay doesn't work. And I've been through all the cables and everything, but that bay will not seem to configure and connect. So, but
time to bust out the screwdriver and the soldering iron.
Yeah, probably. There's probably something wrong in there, but it's perfectly adequate for what I use it for. If I stuck 3 1 terabyte drives or 2 more 1 terabyte drives in the other 2 bays, I'd still have lots and lots of wriggle room for multi-booting. So I'm not particularly worried. I also have an external DVD rewrite drive attached to the machine because as I've only got 4 SATA connections on the motherboard, I had to disconnect everything when I put the IC dock in. For podcasting, I've got a ProSound USB podcast mic that I picked up in a bankruptcy sale a few years ago. One of our local UK tech companies went out of, or big box stores, Maplin's it was called, went out of business, and they were doing a fire sale at the end of the bankruptcy, and I managed to pick this up for 12 quid, which at the time and they still are, last time I looked, going for around £30. So that was quite a nice little buy. And I've got that attached to a boom arm with a pop filter in front of the mic. And I recently bought a 3-home USB webcam. Once the prices had come back to a price that didn't mean remortgaging the house just to buy a webcam after the COVID stuff, I managed to pick this one up for £31 off Amazon, and it means I've now got webcam facilities on my desktop PC. The previous webcam I had was rubbish. It was a very, very old one that had the focal length on it was rubbish, so I couldn't really use it.
Yeah, I've managed to convince one of my friends to let me borrow his 910, Logitech 910, which is it's 1080p 30 frames. But once they normalize here, at least once the 922 Pro, Logitech 922 Pro, once that normalizes back to $100, I'll probably buy one of those.
Yeah. But yeah, they were asking silly money at a few weeks, just a couple of weeks into the lockdown. Suddenly, either they weren't available or they wanted 200 or 300 quid for them, which was ludicrous.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not doing that.
Nah. Now you'll love me for this, Leo. Backup. I've got 2 4TB USB 3 external backup drives. The second of which I bought after you said backup is backup -1. So I got my second 4TB drive shortly after you said that. So now I have 2 of those.
That's awesome, though. That's awesome.
They're actually both the same model, but purchased quite a space in between getting them both. I paid about the same price for them, though. I think it was about £100. These are well adequate for what I've got stored away. They've still got 1.9 terabyte of free space on them both. I should really invest in another one and create an off-site backup, but at the moment I don't have that. I do have a couple of USB portable 2.5-inch drives. I've got a 2 terabyte and a 1 terabyte that I use for taking data on the go when I go out and about. Output wise, I've got 2 laser printers. I've got a Grayscale Brother, which I picked up for about a tenner at the auction several years ago, and it's still going strong. And so that doesn't owe me anything. And I recently purchased an HP Color Laser 150NW for printing color decals for me models. Cost me 130 quid off Amazon, but when you factor in the fact that you can pay £2 to £3 just for one little set of decals for a model car, it's not going to take long to pay me back. Once I start using it in anger, which I've already started doing. Even though the decal paper is about £1 a sheet, you can get at least 20-30 sets of decals out of one sheet of A4 paper, so that's hardly a factor really. It's all in the whole cost of that. So that's about it really. As far as my main setup, I do run several laptops. As I said, I've got a couple of Dell 7440s, which and a couple of Toshiba Z30s that are nice lightweight ultrabooks that I use for distro hopping on as well. So you probably heard more about them on Distro Hoppers Digest, because I quite regularly use them as the test machines for that. But have you got anything more to say, Bo?
Yeah. So working from home, my biggest dilemma is my job gives us a laptop with a pretty small screen, and I'm used to having it on a dock station at the office. And then when we started working from home, I was trying to work, just on that small screen. My solution was I ended up getting a KVM switch for my desktop and laptop so that I could just switch between the two. So I could use my full size monitor and mouse and keyboard with my workstation.
God, that's so
And
nerdy. I love it.
yeah, that was the solution to that problem, and that made a huge difference. Now, I did have like a weird hiccup though. I noticed that whenever I have the KVM on, sometimes has this like really bad buzz, the audio. And I don't know, I mean, I could have just got a bad KVM switch, but I don't hear it. It's not the audio coming, out of my speakers, but it shows up whenever I'm in like a conference call or something like that. There's like a buzz on my side. And I don't hear it, but the other people do. And then I recorded a bit of it so that I could detect it. So I may have just gotten a bad KVM switch, but what I have to do is just whenever I do have a conference call, I just unplug it, and I just use the onboard mic on the laptop. But as far as like my desk setup, so I use a Ryzen 7 build as my main desktop. Built it probably 3 or 4 years ago, and it's a pretty nice PC. It was mostly used for gaming, and I really didn't do much business on it. It was basically just built to run World of Warcraft almost, and I edit podcasts on it now. So what I do is I record podcasts on my laptop, which is a System 76 Kudu. It's also about 3 or 4 years old, and I'll record on it. That's what I'm recording on right now. And then I'll put that file either using Resilio Sync or I'll just put it in Google Drive, and then I'll actually pull it down and edit it on my desktop. Laptop is great for recording. It's great for like browsing the internet and watching videos at my bedside table. But beyond that, I don't really use it. I don't really use it a whole lot. It's just a podcast recorder basically, and then I actually do all my editing and actual production work on the desktop. As we mentioned before, I was running both Windows and Linux. Whenever I started working from home, I installed Windows so that I could do some things on my desktop without having to use the laptop all the time. So yeah, I guess I don't really have much to add unless there's any questions. That's really my work from home setup and podcasting setup.
So that
Did
Ryzen
I create
7.
an rsync? Did I create an rsync convert?
Oh, I've been using it forever, man. I've been using it since it was
Or Resilio
the old
sync convert, I mean.
Yeah, I've been using it since it was the old name.
BT sync.
Yeah,
Before
BT
that,
Sync. Yeah.
BitTorrent sync.
Yep. I've been using it for a long time. I think it's a really cool program. I really like the fact that it's like, well, it's decentralized, but it's if you set up a sync, those two folders will always sync forever as long as you've got that running on in the background on your PC. Even if Resilio Sync were to just disappear off the internet tomorrow, any existing syncs that you have set up would still work. It's pretty cool.
Because it's just
pretty cool
BitTorrent in the
feature.
background, right?
Yeah, it's just using BitTorrent. Yep.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's the kind of stuff that I love to see. Coming out of these protocols that tended to get used for things. This is the kind of stuff that I know that BitTorrent was made for. That's fantastic.
Oh, I have a cool little tip about this too. So whenever I use OBS to record the video for another podcast that I do, OBS automatically saves the file to a specific folder. Well, I have that folder set up to sync to the same folder on my desktop, and so as soon as I finish a live stream, that file, by the time I walk downstairs and say, "Oh, that was a good show," and make a cup of coffee, and then come back up and sit at my desktop, that file already exists on my desktop, so I can seamlessly just start editing the video and post it to YouTube.
Man, that's awesome.
I'm even like I'm looking into setting up like script where whenever a new file appears in that folder, I'll go ahead and do the whatever FFmpeg configurations that I do every single time. And so I could actually even automate this a little bit so that it could actually go ahead and go through and edit these things.
You want to be careful with that one though, because you don't want it doing anything with the file before it's done transferring the whole file over. And it's not instantaneous. So if you have it looking for that file every minute and it takes 5 minutes to transfer everything over.
That's a good point. That's definitely a problem I'd have to solve. Yeah. I still think you could find a way to do that though, especially if you
can.
Well, just have it run at a specific time. Something like 10 minutes after the show is over or something like that. Just always have it run then, and then take an extra long coffee break.
Well, with rsync, it's actually possible to set it up to say when something, or have in the file name that it's not complete yet as the extension, or it's still downloading or whatever as the extension. And so you do that, and then only have it look for something that ends in
with a specific
.mp3
file
or whatever.
extension. Yeah. See, there you go. You already brought up a problem, and you already solved it in that one statement. There you go, Joe. You're a genius.
Well, I have been doing something similar with mine.
Okay, but yeah, that's really all I got.
Tony Watts, how do you work from home? I have some questions about your ThinkPad. So yeah, go ahead. When we get there, I'm going to stop you though.
Okay, fair enough. So in the basement level of my house, I have one room that I've been talking about, starting to finish off, and it is my home office / jam space / music recording area, all of those things. And I guess I'll start with where the network comes from. So I have a router upstairs. It's not the best Wi-Fi router. So I did drop a wire into the basement, and I have a repurposed, it was a Netgear Wi-Fi extender that I flashed DDWRT onto and repurposed it as an access point. And so I have wired internet to my work PC, my server, and my podcasting PC. So I do have wired everywhere, which is good. Otherwise, the Wi-Fi is pretty reliable, but I really need it to be pretty rock solid for work, for everything. So there's that. I have 2 desks down here actually, and they're both kind of in the corner. So I can kind of swivel chair from one to the next, which is kind of fun. The one desk that's my kind of primary desk that I work at has the work computer and my music and podcasting desktop. And then the other desk will tend to hold the server as well as any other computers I might be working on. So that's kind of what that looks like. And then I can get into the company issued equipment here. The company issued laptop is a ThinkPad T480. And I also have the ThinkPad dock with that, a Lenovo wireless keyboard and mouse. And then I use a headset, and it's an older headset, but it's a Plantronics Savvy W720. But what that means is it is a headset that has a base that is wired USB into the docking station in my case, and I do all of the Teams, Microsoft Teams calls on it and all that good stuff. But it can also do Bluetooth connectivity and an actual physical phone line. I did use it that way once upon a time, but haven't for a few years. One of the nice things I like about this headset is I can walk away from the base and go all over the house or all over the office. I brought it home from the office for the time being. I can travel and get a cup of coffee and all that kind of stuff. And the range is pretty good. So that's kind of the work setup. Leo, you had a question about the ThinkPad.
Yeah, so how loud does that thing get? I've been eyeballing, I've got a T450S. I've been eyeballing going to a T480 because those are starting to become right into my price range secondhand.
Yeah.
So how is it? Do you hate it?
No, I don't. But you know what I would probably have to temper my answer with is all I'm really doing on this thing is the stuff I do for the company, which doesn't tax it at all.
I
I'm
see. Okay.
doing Microsoft Teams calls and spreadsheets and internet stuff. I've not done really any gaming to speak of or anything that would push it to where it would make noise. So I'm not sure I'm the best person to give you an answer on that one.
Well, honestly, the Microsoft Teams stuff might actually push it as far as I would normally push it anyway, because the most, I guess, intensive thing that I do on this laptop is get onto a Zoom call and record Audacity at the same time. So it kind of sounds like you're doing all that with Teams, but without the Audacity bit. And if it's not much louder than the T450S, then I'm good. One of the things that I had heard about it was that I don't know if it was just the S series T480S, but that they tended to get hot and it would the CPU would have to scale back. I forget what that's called.
Yeah,
I don't know
it
why it
does get
escapes
a
me.
little warm. I can feel some, if I put my hand next to the vent, I can feel some heat coming off of it. I use it sitting on top of the desk. I don't ever actually use it in my lap. So these aren't things that I
Yeah.
notice too much, to be honest. But
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I very
think
rarely
Leo
put it
was
in my lap.
talking about thermal throttling.
That's the word. That's the one. Yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah,
Okay, well, that's
not
cool.
anything I've paid attention to. I think if it were my personal machine, it might be a different story. But for doing work for the company, it's not had any problems. It's gets the job done. I've not noticed any lag or any problems, freezing, anything like that. I've been using it for the better part of a year, I think.
That's cool. All right. Well, I mean, it's got that ThinkPad resiliency, so that's awesome. And then I'll keep eyeballing it. It looks good, and I'm planning on going with the non-S version because it's way more upgradable. But the T480 tends to. Oh, the last question I had was screen. How good is it? Like really? Be brutal.
It's not bad.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's good enough. I don't have a lot of points of comparison, to be honest, though. I don't think it's as it's not as nice as external monitors I've seen, but for a laptop screen, it's it's nice and bright. It's all right. Again, I'm not sure I'm the best person to ask because I guess I just don't have a ton of points of comparison. But
Got it. Yeah, the monitor that my desktop is on that I didn't really talk about is a VA panel, which is right in between TN, which is the really fast ones, but they tend to have bad color representation, and IPS, which tends to be a little slower, though not so much anymore, and have really great color representation, like Adobe Photoshop level stuff, right? And I used to have an IPS screen, and I gave that one to my wife. And every time I walk by that monitor, I'm like, I miss it. I miss it. So for a laptop screen, I'm really looking for something with IPS. For as much as I try to stay away from them, Macs have some of the best screens that you can get your hands on. They are fantastic. So if I can even get 80% of the way, 90% of the way there, then that would be good enough for me. But anyway, I'll keep looking. Thanks for the advice.
Yeah. So getting into the music / podcasting setup that I use, I will preface everything I'm gonna say here with you guys are gonna find this amusing because everything involved in that setup is just a collection of old stuff that's almost comical that I'm still using. So I've set your expectations there. But at the same time, a few of these things have sentimental value and have some history as to where they came from too. So, getting into that, the desktop I'm using is really long in the tooth. I'm not sure how long I will be using this, but it is a Dell Inspiron desktop. It's an older machine. It's a Core Duo, and it is, yikes, about 11 years old. So I kind of can't believe I'm still using it, but it for audio work and this podcast and other music things that I do, it's still doing the job. This computer was an old computer of my grandfather's, and he's not here anymore, so a little bit of sentimental value with that. I've got a video card in it for the multiple monitor support. It's nothing special. It's a low profile, cheap AMD card, but it does allow me to do 3 monitors at once, which is good. The sound card / audio interface. So I've talked about this on the show before. This is a M Audio Delta 66. So that is a sound card with a breakout box. So this is not a USB audio interface. It goes into a traditional PCI slot for the sound card, and then to the breakout box from there. I bought this used almost 20 years ago, so really gotten a lot of mileage out of it. But I bought it from a coworker at the time in like 2003. So this is like a late 90s, early 2000s, I guess, piece of equipment. But it has not had any of the audio sampling issues that we've talked about with the USB interfaces. Haven't had to do anything with it. It's been easier for me to use under Linux than Windows. I remember under Windows, I would have to go kind of chase the driver out from the manufacturer's site and all that. It just works under Linux and always has since I've used it. The only thing I have to do is install this utility to be able to kind of control the some of the settings, and that is in the repos. It's nothing special that I have to go after. It's just apt install and the utility, and off we go. So there's that. When I do upgrade this computer, it's probably going to mean that I won't be using this audio setup anymore. So I will lament that somewhat, but I do have a PreSonus audio interface now that I can move to. So I will be able to do that if I get a new PC. Into the audio interface, I'm using a cheap Behringer microphone. It's an XM1800S. I bought a 3-pack of these for like $50 on Amazon. I've tested it up against a Shure SM58, and I cannot really tell a significant difference, to be honest. So give Behringer their credit. You get a lot of bang for your buck with their products for sure. I do have a condenser mic that's very nice. It's an MXL V57M. It's a really high quality mic, but as Joe was saying with his new mic, it's a condenser. It really does pick up a lot. So I will probably just, move to the new audio interface and try using that mic and do all that at once at some point. I have a boom arm with this. For headphones, the Audio-Technica M50X headphones, really just for durability and functionality with those. I've been through a couple sets of studio headphones, and invariably one side will go out. So hoping these will just last a long time. They're pretty
Once
sturdy.
Again, I say, time to bust out the screwdriver and the soldering iron.
Yeah, I'm going to leave that to you. You'll have a package coming your way.
Send them to me and I'll fix them.
Yeah, that's been the plan for a long time, but Tony lazy when it comes to those kind of things that are low priority, apparently. But yeah. Let's see, my monitors. I have purchased so many monitors from Goodwill, and both of the ones I'm using in this setup, that's true. So I think that it was like $15 up for each of these or something. I've got an Asus and a ViewSonic. They're nothing special, but I do have a dual monitor setup, and they're okay. I don't have computer speakers ran into this. I will either use the audio interface with headphones in it, or, and this is kind of interesting, I've got a JVC stereo that I had to look it up. It's from 1983. That used to belong to my father. Ran into a pair of Bose bookshelf speakers. So that is the audio for this computer when I decide to run it out to external speakers. So stories with both of these. My brother passed a few years ago, and these were the speakers that were connected to his stereo system. And then the stereo, like I said, it was my dad's, but his, let's see, his ex-wife, his second marriage, they got into an argument and she dumped a Budweiser in it. And then it was closeted for a few years, and it still works, but the lights don't come on, but it works. So yeah, stories abound with all this stuff. So that's pretty much my setup for for the basement, for getting work done of any kind. The last thing I'll mention is tablet, because I really do use it to get a lot done for music. Anytime I go and play music anywhere, I have a tablet holder clipped onto a microphone stand. It's got all the songs in front of me. It's largely for a set list, just so I can kind of see my list of songs to kind of keep things organized a little bit. I don't usually need to look at the lyrics and chords and stuff, but they're there. And if it's a fairly new song to me, I'll have that. I've been using a Kindle Fire tablet for that, but I think I'm going to have to. I think I'm going to move over to an iPad for that and use it, mostly because of the app I've been using. I'm going to avoid the names of the apps in case there's something going on that's my fault and user error, but I've been having some problems with the app I've been using on Android for a couple of years, and there's just not a lot of app selections for this specific purpose out there on Android. And on iPad there is, and I have a spare iPad I can use. So anyway, every time I play music, the tablet gets a bunch of use as well. So I think that's it for me.
Well, very cool. That sounds like all our setups. I think we'll ask Moss to give us a bit of a peek into his setup next time we see him. But for now, that'll do it for our innard section. So we'll move on down to vibrations from the ether. So in this feedback section, we've got a few emails and one Telegram comment. So let's get on. Larry Murphy writes in, I just heard episode 342.5. I wanted to let you know that way back when, early to mid 2000s, when I wanted to multi-boot, I found a YouTube that was a step-by-step guide. The person had, 106 OSs on his computer. All right, Moss, there it is. when we get you back on here, we're going to see if we can fit 107 on yours. The guide was very complete. I modified it for my needs. It worked for about 6 months till it wouldn't boot. Checking, I found out that my downfall was updating the config files. I accepted one that was a default. With the system upgraded, I needed to save the one I had filled out. It was a real newbie error. Now I boot all my OSs from a BIOS, much easier and safer. I use a SSD for each OS, such as Windows and Linux. I only put OSs on SSDs and data on separate internal and external drives. So it sounds like it was kind of doing what Ventoy does. That actually sounds very familiar. So, really interesting. Yeah, I'm going to have to find this YouTube video. Larry, if that video is still out there, link me to it. That's just interesting to look at. So, anyway, he goes on. I found that Linux is quicker to install, and even with all the customizing I do, I customize many of the folders and almost all of my desktop icons for easy identification. I have used the same icon in both Windows and Linux. Oh, that's cool. I find it much easier in Linux because I don't have to change the pics to ICO files as is needed by Windows. I also find that my internet is faster in Linux, as well as download speeds, and I can burn DVDs faster in Linux as well. Really? That's cool. I didn't want you to think setting up multi-boot on my own. I wanted to do it just to see if I could. Oh, I see. I always customize my Windows installs, but the Linux installs are much easier to do. And as always, I enjoy listening to each one of you folks on the show. Thanks for the great content and all your hard work that goes into each show. Well, thank you, Larry Murphy. I appreciate that. And yeah, if you could send me that video, I would love to watch it. There's just nothing better than watching someone do something absolutely crazy that that is very rare to see. That's cool. Anyway, we got a John Wallace saga coming up.
Did you say the John Wallace saga?
Oh, yeah. So he sent us a couple of emails. One was of the errors from what looked like the encrypted thing we were talking about a few episodes ago. So he said, I would appreciate your assistance, please, with the error messages arising in the attached screenshot at boot stage, before and after the hard disk encryption password is entered. I look forward to hearing from you. So, if this is not posing a problem for you, It doesn't actually look like this has anything to do with encryption. So the ACPI BIOS error bug could not resolve symbol AE not found. So there's some extra bits in there. And then a following error that says ACPI error aborting method due to previous error. So what this is, from my cursory look-arounds, is not anything to do with encryption, and has everything to do with the Linux kernel not being happy at the way that your motherboard is implementing ACPI. And it's basically just complaining about that fact. And
Yeah,
that's it.
and I think you can turn that off in the boot ACPI.
Yeah, I think you can do
And-
like quiet or something.
ACPI equals off. It's been a while since I've had to mess with that type of configuration, but if it's happening after his grub, then yeah, you could do the ACPI equals off, or what is it? LS ACPI equals off. Like I said, it's been a long time, but there's a way to turn it off from grub. Now, if it's happening before grub, then there's some other problem there at the BIOS level. Because I did look at the image earlier, and it's concerning that it happens sometimes before and sometimes after the hard disk encryption password is entered. Because
Well,
you figure if it was something at the BIOS level, it would be occurring at the same time every time.
Well, I think what's happening here is that it is definitely happening after grub, because when you look at the error, it's got that number right at the beginning, which is telling me that it's a D-message error, which means that the kernel's already loaded up, grub's already done its jazz, and now the kernel is just complaining at 1 second and 920285 seconds and 920307 seconds in. So as far as I know, you could probably get away if you can silence this in grub. That would work. That
Yeah.
would really be all you need to do.
Yeah,
But-
it is ACPI equals off, but that is a temporary fix. It can introduce issues of its own. So what ACPI off equals off will get you is loaded into the operating system. And so you'll know that it's something specific within ACPI that is the problem. And then you start shutting off individual modules until you find the one that allows your computer to boot without any issues.
Well,
And
I don't think this error is causing him to not boot. I think this is coming up during boot, and it's causing issues, or it just looks bad.
Right. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you could. Okay, now if ACPI equals off doesn't work, there's also PCI equals no ACPI. But like I said, this should. I've used it as a long-term solution in the past, but on like laptops and things, you lose the ability to interact with your battery, and a lot of times you lose functionality of the power button unless you want to long press it until it completely shuts off. So you can start looking around at the different functions for ACPI that can be turned off and on, and then just start killing them one at a time until the error goes away.
Yeah, I don't even know that you have to go that far with it, to be honest, because I don't think this particular error is actually saying anything needs to change. It's just complaining. The kernel is just complaining that I don't like the way that ACPI is being presented to me by this particular BIOS or by this particular motherboard. So, and then the kernel just happily moves on and does whatever it does. So if you are experiencing power type issues, then maybe we can start to dig into this a little bit more. But unless that's the case, I wouldn't bother. I wouldn't mess with anything. It's just one of those errors that I think you can turn it off. You can just have grub not let the kernel complain in a visible way. It'll still complain. It'll still end up in dmessage, but you won't see it, so it won't bother you.
Right.
I think Windows, handles this in a just don't show them anything kind of way. And I think you can also choose a splash screen too to prevent this from happening.
The quiet splash.
Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking before. So ACPI quiet splash or something
Yeah,
like that.
that would make it not visible. Yes.
Yeah, so if it's just a it looks weird kind of thing, you might be able to get away with changing it that way. All right, well that's
I've-
half of the saga. Oh, go ahead.
I have included in the show notes the grub addendum that you have to make in order for both of those fixes to be implemented. So you can just take out the PCI equals no ACPI if you want and just leave it as a quiet splash. But I have dropped the whole line for what would go in grub.
Fantastic. Yeah, grub command line Linux default. That's what I was thinking. Perfect. I had to do this a while back using that particular one, and I had to throw default in there or something because for some reason the brightness keys on my keyboard wouldn't work unless I did that, which is weird. But
Right.
yeah, it was an ACPI thing.
Yeah, I used to have to do it a lot for anything that had hybrid graphics.
Oh yeah, actually, yeah. This machine had hybrid graphics, so that probably explains that. Cool. Well, we got a second part to this one, and this one is in line with the whole security saga that we've been talking about. So he says, "Hi Leo, I would appreciate your guidance on systemd-udevd.service. What is it used for? Linus has marked it as unsafe." All right, I'm going to tackle the last bit first. Linus has marked it as unsafe. Here is the reason Linus thinks it's unsafe. UDEV is basically the arbiter of plug-and-play stuff. If you plug in a sound card, USB sound card, a flash drive, a camera, a phone, anything, all of those devices go through UDEV. And actually, I think, Bo, we were about to get into UDEV before we stopped doing the LPIC stuff.
I think we talked about UDEV. I think that's
Oh,
one
did
of
we?
the. Yeah, it might even be the video that we posted on YouTube.
Oh, cool. Okay. So
If it's not, then it's one of the videos I still have.
Oh, well, that's cool too. We'll throw it out there one of these days. But yeah, UDEV is basically the guy that says, "Oh, okay, cool. There's new hardware. Let me add that." Now, here is why I think Linus is marking it unsafe. Typically, UDEV will just straight help the operating system mount a flash drive to I guess to your machine, right? So it'll just straight mount it in media. So because of that, you are exposing yourself to files and executables that, if run, may be dangerous. This is something that is taken care of typically in a group policy in Windows. I mean, you basically just say, well, don't mount it. You right click on it, hit the properties of it, disable automatic mounting, and then no one can automatically mount it. You have to go physically mount it yourself, or you can straight up say no flash drives whatsoever. You can do the same thing in UDEV, but it is a little more complex. You basically have to put a script in what I think is like /etc/udev/rules.d or something like that. So there's a little bit more work. And what you do not want to do is disable this service. Systemd-udevd deals with everything hardware-wise
No
you
mouse,
might plug
no
in
keyboard,
after. Yes,
no
exactly.
camera.
So yeah, don't disable it. This is one where I can say, oh yeah, maybe you disable it, maybe you don't. You just test it around. No, this will break stuff. Do not disable udevd. But what you can do is add in scripts that say, do not automatically mount flash drives, or do not automatically mount this hard drive or that hard drive or hardware or whatever. You have to get real specific with UDEV and tell it exactly how you want it to behave, because otherwise it'll just be whatever your distribution decided UDEV should behave like. So I mean, Ubuntu typically just, oh yeah, mount it. There it is. Boom. There are your files. Cool. But that's ease of use. Same as in Windows. People plug in something, they want to get at it, right? So you can actually set up UDEV to where it will, I won't encourage you to do this, but you find that flash drive in the parking lot and you plug it into your computer and it's not one of the ones that blow up your USB hub. It's just got malicious stuff on it. Yeah, UDEV can handle it in such a way that does not immediately infect your machine or doesn't run scripts or stuff like that. So
That's what a Quarter Duo is for.
yeah, exactly, right? You have a burner PC to try this weird stuff on. So yeah, so the long and short of it, without going too terribly far into detail, that's what UDEV does. Automatically deals with hardware that you plug in after the fact, and you can have it configured to where it will treat flash drives and things like that, which is what I think Linus is complaining about. If there's more information on that, I'd love to see it. And you just configure UDEV to behave the way you want it to behave. So, yep, that's the long and short of it. So, man, I love these questions. These questions are so fun. I love talking about this stuff. All right. Well, thank you for writing in, John. I really, really, really do appreciate these questions. It lets me, just ramble on about interesting stuff. All right, next up, Raphael again. So the first thing he says is, "You guys made my day." Well, Raphael, hopefully we make your day one more time. He said, "I was having a long day at work on Thursday. Then listening to my podcast, the Linux Mint podcast was on, and then the listeners' questions section was like all about me. Sorry if I made this episode longer than you like. You didn't. This was a great joy to hear you talking about this question. I immediately felt the need to give back to you. So, and I mentioned this in the YouTube chat, making things that are offered for free, just making them better. Yeah, he made a donation to archive.org on our behalf. Thank you. That's so fantastic. I love that. And these are the guys that host our podcast. So yeah, any a single dollar to archive.org is fantastic. So yes, thank you, Raphael, for that. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
And so to the solution. So he's the one that wrote in about VLC was not behaving the way that he wanted it to behave. It wasn't playing MP4 files. So anyway, he said he downloaded the Linux Mint 20 ISO and plan on installing it soon. So that's going to fix the issue. Everything works out of the box there. But then he tried my other solution temporarily, which is sudo flatpak install org.videolan.vlc. So I told him try VLC through Flatpak. It's the new version, probably has all the codecs installed. But yeah, totally forgot. There, you got to add FlatHub in there. So he gave us the correct command, which is flatpak install FlatHub org.videolan.vlc. So and it turns out that in Mint you don't need to actually put sudo in there. It will ask you to deal with that. So yeah, fantastic. Anyway, he says it seems to work. I have not finished checking yet, but keep up the good work. So again, Raphael, thank you for donating to archive.org. That's fantastic. They can use all the help they can get. They do good work. All right. And then last minute, Anthony, so Swift in Telegram asked, so I got to ask a question having to do with FOSS or bust. So he's talking about our last episode and kind of some of this episode too. Years ago, I would use Wine to do things from Windows on Linux, and it worked at least sometimes. How come I don't see that option discussed anymore? So you guys want to tackle this? You guys use much Wine?
Okay, what was the question?
So how come we don't hear a lot about Wine anymore?
Well, for a while there, Wine was mostly a dead project. And people do still use Wine, but mostly I've heard about it used in conjunction with gaming, you don't hear about it a lot in conjunction with desktop applications. It's a pain to set up. That's about the best I can say for it.
I think.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say. I think we used to hear about Wine all the time for making games work, and well, now Proton.
Yeah,
which is just Wine.
Yeah, exactly. It's a
True.
wrapper.
You just don't have to configure it, right? So,
that's what
here's
I was
the deal.
gonna say. I feel like Proton, and then you got was it Lutris?
Lutris is also a wrapper for Wine.
But the thing is now that we have these tools, before there was like Play on Linux, it was kind of hit or miss.
Which was also a wrapper for Wine.
Exactly.
Yep.
But this is all what I'm getting at. So it used to be that you had to do a lot of hands-on with Wine directly, and so that's why you heard about it a lot. But now we have all these wrapper tools that do all of that for you, and so you really don't have to, like, the conversation no longer is about Wine specifically, but it's about Proton versus Lutris versus Play on Linux. And so I think that's why you hear it talked about less, even though it probably is used just as much.
Yep.
Now, there
and
are some alternate solutions, I think, with some Electron apps, but I'm not sure. Because I know Notepad++ isn't a native application, but it sure seems to run like a native application. So
you can install Notepad++ with Snap, and surprise, surprise, it bundles Wine.
Okay, yeah. So it is not a wrapper for Wine, but an installer for Wine.
Yeah, it contains everything you need, Wine and Notepad++, if I'm not mistaken. But to Bo's point, I think that's exactly right. Wine has become an implementation detail that you don't really fiddle with anymore. So the conversation has shifted from Wine to all the other cool goodies that we get to play with now. So I think we still talk about Wine. We just don't call it by name anymore.
Right, and with it coming in a Snap, most people don't even have to think about it.
Yep. For things like Notepad++, it's just, an implementation detail that nobody ever thinks about anymore. So they still do good work. If you play games on Linux, there's a good chance you're using Wine. So, if you got an extra $5 floating around, throw it to those guys too.
Has it just gotten so good that we don't talk about it anymore?
Yep. That's
Well,
quite literally the answer.
When it comes to most applications, yes. Now with gaming, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more involved, and that's why you have those different wrappers.
Yeah, but those wrappers are what move the conversation from talking about Wine to talking about Lutris. But yeah, you're absolutely right though. All right, well, that'll do it for our feedback section. So let's move on down to check this out. All right, just a couple of things, and then we'll wrap this show up. Tony Hughes, you've got something.
Yeah, I've just got a quick reminder that if you want to have a look at my model cars, I've got a couple of videos on YouTube, and there's a link in the show notes to find them. So go and check them out.
Or you could also go to, probably in about an hour, if you're listening to this live, go to the mintCast channel in YouTube and check out the Friendos section, and we'll have Tony Hughes linked there.
And definitely send me any of those links, and I will put them in the mintCast Facebook.
Woo woo. And Joe, what is athlean? That sounds like a meat, like a cold cut.
Well, you know how I've been talking about changing up my workout routine and making it a bit more intense and just changing the exercises that I do. And a lot of that has been through watching YouTube videos since, not leaving the house is a thing. And the one I've been watching lately is Athlean X. So I dropped a link to his YouTube site for other people to check out.
Nice. I totally thought, and I was gonna try and steer that conversation, man, but I totally thought you were gonna try to like hawk some CBD tincture or something. Because, dude, if y'all are listening to podcasts right now, I don't know if those are ads or not, but they sound like ads. Like I've heard so much CBD, vitamin D, vitamin C,
Well,
eat your iron. My God.
I have to take vitamin D.
There's
even when
totally
we
a
were
reason.
going outside, I had to take vitamin
There's
D.
totally a reason. But we have all these non-medical professionals hawking all this medical stuff that you should probably be talking to your doctor about all the time. And it's like, okay, but that's weird in the middle of a tech podcast. Weird. Anyway, Bo,
Well, these
too?
tech guys, when it comes to vitamin D and tech guys don't spend a whole lot of time, outside.
This is true.
So it is
This
important for them to take vitamin D. It is a tech issue.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll give you some credit on that one. That's cool. Bo, you had something?
Yeah, I was muted because my kid's screaming Spider-Man in the other room. I don't know if it's picking it up, but I actually forgot that I put this article in the notes until just now, but I have an article linked that is about how you can create temporary emails, for signing up for websites and things, and you don't want to use your real email. But this is cool because it uses an API to create minute emails. It's actually using an API for 1 second emails, 1 sec emails. from the terminal. So you can actually from your terminal create the email and receive the message for your sign up.
I hear it. I hear it. It's so cute though.
So yeah, I have a link to that in the show notes.
Very cool. All right. Well, 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 we have come to the end of the show. So, our announcement. Our next episode will be Sunday, October 4th, 2020 at 2 p.m. Central U.S. Time, 7 p.m. UTC, and 8 p.m. British Summer. If for some reason you're not in one of those zones, and that's probably most of you, time conversions are available at timeanddate.com, and you can just use Austin, Texas as your central time reference. Coming up on, what is it? Tony, we talked about it November 1st. Is that what I said? That'll be when the craziness begins.
Yeah, I think you did say November the 1st. We go, our clocks go back on October the 25th.
Oh, okay. So October 25th will be when the fun begins.
Yeah, and yours go back on Sunday the 1st, very early hours of the morning, but it shouldn't affect the show because we'll be lined up by the time we record.
I
Cool.
think for our time zone, most people use Chicago as opposed to Austin.
It's true, but I live in Texas, so
I also live in Texas.
Exactly. No, I know on the installers it's just like Chicago, and I'm like, but that's not even in my state. What's going on? Anyway, so before we get out of here, Joe, where can we find more of you?
Well, I'm also on the Linux Link Tech Show, which you can get at www.tllts.org. I'm on the Linux Lugcast, which is at www.linuxlugcast.com. We just recorded this last Friday. You can find me on MeWe, or you can send me an email, jb@mintcast.org.
And Bo, what about you?
You can find the podcasts that I participate in over at undercastnetwork.com, and we just started a new YouTube channel, Undercast Collective. You can search for that on YouTube.
That was the funniest way you could have said that. That I participate in.
Yeah, I didn't know how to say it.
That's perfect. All right, and Moss isn't here today, but you can get him at Triad Bardic College, Peaceful Hippo, MeWe, Bandcamp, Moss Bliss's YouTube channel, Robert Warren's channel, Moss at mintcast.org, Distro Hopper's Digest at mintcast.org, and or sponsors. Tony Hughes.
I better turn my mic back on, hadn't I?
Yeah, that'll help.
Yeah, you can find me at Hacker Public Radio, host ID 338. I do my occasional blog, tony-hughes.blogspot.com. I'm on Twitter, TonyH1212. I'm also on distrohoppersdigest@gmail.com, and you can grab the link to my new YouTube channel as well from the
Nice.
show notes.
Tony Watts.
Music stuff you can find at Echoes of Savages on any of the places, really, YouTube, Facebook, what have you. You can get solo acoustic stuff at facebook.com/Tony Watts Music. And if you want to hit me up on email about anything show related, tw@mintcast.org.
Nice. For me, leochavez.org and at Leo Chavez on Twitter. LinuxUserspace.show is the other show, other show that I'm on. And then you can get your 5-minute news digest at Full Circle Weekly News, which is, my friends, current. It's actually current. It took me like a year, but it's current. Yay. All right. Well, before we leave, we want to make sure to acknowledge some of the people who make mintCast possible. Owen Peary for audio editing. Josh for all his work on the website. Hobstar for our logo. Bytemark Hosting for hosting mintcast.org and our Mumble server. Archive.org for hosting our audio files. HPR for our Mumble backup. And the Linux Mint development team that for the fine distro we love to talk about every fortnight. Thanks, Clem. And Co.
Thank you, Clem.
Thanks, Clem. All right.
I would do the outro music, but like I said before, we just talk over it anyway. So
Yeah, it's because we can't hear it on our end.
I know. One of these days,
I have
seriously,
to hit
it
the
might be
pharmacy,
20.
so
It might be 2025, but I'll route Jack through, and then we'll be able to hear the music, right?
I guess a real easy solution. I have multiple computers around me. Maybe I'll just have one route audio from, you know, I think you know what I'm trying to say. I think I can just have one computer dedicated to that.
It has
Well,
to be.
that's what I do. That's my desktop. That's dedicated to streaming and music playing.
all right.
Yeah,
I am
should-
exporting my audio now. I will upload it in about 20 minutes when I get back from the pharmacy, but I got to go there before they close.
All right, man.
All right.
Okay.
All right. It was fun. I will talk to you guys later.
Yeah, see ya.
Later. Okay. That's cool. Another show in the can, in the bucket, in the can. Is it bucket or can?
I think either
think
is acceptable.
I think it's a can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unlike this
yeah.
Damon Demon situation, you can say it
Listen.
either way.
Listen, I mean, I'm happy for people to say it however they want to. I'm just saying there's only one true, real way to say it.
But I'm not sure which one it is. I'll have to ask Matt Damon.
See, and that is not how you spell that. All right. Points for Demon. This will be one of those always unsettled disputes, mostly because it's right both ways.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Just making jokes.
All right, well, I gotta get out of here, guys. Gotta get some food, but I'll upload the audio soon.
Sounds
All
good. Bo, don't forget, it's a totally new folder now.
Okay, I might have
You
to
may
ask
have
you
you may have
guys.
totally already seen it. It's just called audio.
Okay.
You'll see it
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Talk to y'all later.
later.
Guess I'll go ahead and jump off too. See you guys later.
Yeah, I'm starving, man.
Yeah.
All right, y'all have a good one. Tony, is it just you left now? Tony Hughes?
Yeah, I'm still here, but
And
I'm
it's
about to
getting late.
go because it's 11:15.
Oh gosh, yeah. This one ended up being about 30 minutes. You know, last time we talked about, or maybe it was the time before, that we're getting shorter every time.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah. No.
We blew that up.
All right. Good night.
Good night. Well, it's just me and all of you live streamers now. So thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate y'all hanging out until the very, very end. This was a very, very long show today, but I do appreciate you guys. And you might even hear I'm getting a little hoarse. But thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate it. And we will see you again next time.